Chapter 101, Tribute AD 1897, the summer of the Year of the Griffin. The enthronement ceremony of the All-End Empire's 20th emperor was just around the corner. At the same time, the news of the invasion of the White Whale tribe of the Sea Folks was accidentally leaked. The emperor was enraged. In a single night, he demoted 37 high nobles and stripped the position of over 200 high-ranking military officials in 3 armies and put them into interrogation. The crosses used to hang those guilty rose from the ground by the river, extending for several miles. This day became known in history as the Bloody Night of the White Whales. On the same day, the All-End Third Fleet, which was stationed on the upper river from the capital Codex City, and the All-End First Fleet, which was stationed on the lower river, arrived in the capital on the same day and began to surround and eliminate the White Whale tribe. On the very same day, the Hermit River, which was praised as the flowing chrysoprase, was dyed blood red. The blast of the cannons and the sound of slaughter shook the heavens. The various districts of the capital became a battlefield. Pincered by 2 great fleets, they held advantage at the start of the battle. But, when the semi-god sea dragon Hydra and innumerable sea folks and sea monsters joined the battle, the All-End Empire guardian hero Dragon Hunter Deimos got killed in battle, while the Empire advisor Blood Mage Emperor Marcelit was heavily wounded. The half of the Second Fleet was wiped out while the First Fleet was completely annihilated. During the war, the sea monsters cooperated and exerted their powers together, causing the water level to rise, and the Pier District, Bacteria District and a few other districts of Codex City were submerged underwater. As large amount of water elementals came to shore, rainwater continued to pour down as the war gradually stalls into a stalemate. 2 weeks later, 10 cities that were close to the sea or by a river got assaulted. Cerulean City and numerous other cities fell in a single day, of which, the Cerulean City was invaded by the Blood Shark tribe, which comprised man-eating fishmen, resulting in the entire city getting purged. Symbolized by the Blood Night of White Whales, the horns of the eternal sacred war is blown on once again. Led by the water elemental goddess Salos and the malevolent goddess Queen of Storms, the sea folks who came to shore became the vanguards of this war, and the Chaos faction rises up once again. Due to a letter from Princess Wren, the All-End Empire managed to avoid being cornered into a desperate situation from a sudden invasion. Thankful to the East Mist Communal Country and Princess Wren, the Emperor declared the East Mist Communal Country will forever be a brother nation to the All-End Empire, and proposed to Princess Wren in front of a crowd once again. But, due to the current chaos, Princess Wren once again rejected the proposal of the Emperor under the pretext of being worried for her country. But privately, there were already rumors on the streets that Princess Wren furiously reprimanded Darsos for being ridiculous and threw 2 red-colored high heels towards him, hitting both the Emperor himself and his finance minister Hermit. It is said that Hermit fainted on the spot and the situation turned chaotic. Being bugged by such matters when your country has fallen knee-deep into such trouble, I have never seen such an idiotic emperor. I have already said that I am uninterested in men. You want to marry me? Impossible, unless you find an Edwina's belt and come to me in a skirt. In the eyes of those who are aware, this move of Darsos's is indeed very crafty. By proclaiming that the East Mist is a brother nation, they were able to directly take the East Mist Communal Country out of the list of vassal states. As rumors and gossips started to spread, as the shadows of war creep closer, as rows of people are hung on crosses, as a large amount of those opposing Darsos land in jail, his bad reputation is no longer of importance. As long as he is able to lead his people out of this period of turmoil, he would be able to unite the country even more strongly than any of those fleeting titles could. Although the public evaluation of the emperor is generally negative, the princess of the small country who entranced the emperor to the point he loses his prestige and rationality has become the hottest topic recently. Praises of her beauty and straightforward personality spread far and wide that she became reputed as the pure snow lotus of the high mountains. It is said that despite looking pure and young, she has a certain charm that the emperor is exceptionally attracted to. At this moment, hearing the rumors that his companions have collected, that Flower is on the verge of murdering someone. Lotus of the high mountains? Darsos, you sure know how make people low you conveniently. Using me to divert the attention of the public? This old man will remember this grudge. Make sure not to display any weakness for me to exploit. At this moment, I didn't have the time to wallow in my resentment. There are many responsibilities here and there that I had to take care of. After receiving the news, Darsos investigated the authenticity of the news before waiting patiently for an opportunity to use this topic to explode and get rid of those opposing him to solidify his authority. This is still within my expectations. Afterwards, Darsos, using repaying the favor as an excuse, proclaims the East Mist as a brother nation, pulling the agreement on providing resources and assistance to the surface, thus hastening the progress of the fulfillment of the contract. Very quickly, when he fully fulfills the terms of the agreement, I would have to pass the key on to him. If I don't speed up the progress, then my efforts would be for naught. After all, this is the capital of the All-End Empire. Even if they have met with some trouble, no one thinks that the All-End Empire would actually lose. That dragon may be powerful, but it isn't invincible. As the trusted subordinate of the malevolent goddess Queen of Storms, it heading out to the battlefield also signifies the malevolent chaos gods officially stepping into the battlefield. With top-tier powers, its ability to pull aggression is also top class. It is very possible that some dragon-slaying god envoy of some true god is already on their way down. However, the reason why Darsos hastened the fulfillment of the agreement is probably because he still holds some expectations for the things in the secret base. If an air fleet were to suddenly charge out from the bottom of the river, it would change the flow of the entire battle. Of course, he has also prepared himself for the scenario that he might walk out empty-handed from the secret base as well. As for me, if I don't want to end up empty-handed, then I must really quicken my pace. Have you found Tracy? While reorganizing our forces for battle, the disappearance of the siren caused quite a hassle for us. She suddenly returned to the circus with a box in her hands. There is a special seal on top of it. Judging from the mark of a shield and longsword crossing one another, an insignia of a guardian, it is probably the insignia of some royalty. The insignia of royalty? Most probably, this is the stolen tribute. Harlois and I look at each other with a smile on our face. It seems that we have found our target. Our patient surveillance has finally reaped its rewards and it is time to reel in the hooks of our fishing rods. Sidon War's Ocean Bottle, a legendary god equipment of the ancient sea god. It is said that in ancient times, it could stir endless tsunamis. Even though it has lost a large portion of its powers after the death of the ancient god, if it were to land in the hands of the Queen of Storms and Sidon War's wife, the ancient water elemental goddess, there is a chance it might regain its god powers. After finding out that the stolen tribute was such a treasure, the moment we received intelligence from a son of greed that the siren is looking for the stolen tribute, we immediately came to a realization. Regardless of why she revealed the secrets of the sea folks, as long as Tracy manages to find the god equipment, we must prevent it from returning to the sea by all means. Solo Federation's tribute, congratulatory gift, was stolen by the Celestial Tower. Given Tracy's previous relationship with the Celestial Tower, if she had kept a lookout for it, she would definitely know where the lost tribute is. Based on our estimates, now that the members of the Celestial Tower are reduced to fugitives, she is probably the only one who can find the tribute now. Thus, the moment Tracy returns back to her own tent in the circus, uninvited guests came knocking at her door. Open the door. We are here to check the water meter. What? You didn't install water meter? Then we are here to deliver water to your doorstep. Forget it. You don't have to open the door. Your family will never need to open the door ever again. Alright, when a legend Holy Knight raises her sacred sword and charges forth, when a legend druid summons storm and lightning onto the entire tent, the tent is instantly reduced to wreckage. At this moment, astonishment is clearly shown on Tracy's face. With the barely open box with the tribute in her hands, she looks at us, who suddenly appeared, in surprise. Haha, you didn't expect this, did you? We have been waiting for a long time now. Hand over the god equipment. As I walk out gleefully, I set my gaze towards the box and the next moment, I am dumbfounded. What's this? Where's the god equipment? There is nothing that resembles a bottle in the box. That is a white jade sculpture and the shape resembles a banana or an ivory. It looks like a certain something, really alike. The more I look at it, the more it resembles it. This is a man-made dildo. This is a special kind of warm jade that simulates the body temperature of humans. Looking at its color and the handicraft, it is definitely a top quality good. the work of a master. This is the rarest of the rare goods. Definitely a god equipment. Okay, I am regretting my decision in bringing Bai Feng along. In an instant, he spoke the truth of the matter that we were trying our best to overlook. This is the tribute? Having her privacy invaded, Tracy nods her head in a daze. It is indeed a tool for concubines. As the pronunciation for concubines and tribute is identical, it isn't weird that Greed would make such a mistake. TL, concubines, Gong 1 Pin 2, and tribute, Gong 4 Pin 3, since you all found out, then I will hide it no further. Actually, one of my main goals in staying in the human world is to research adult toys. You all know that we sirens are mostly females and that we are cold-blooded creatures. We live alone in the sea and it is difficult for us to meet with another of our kind, making the long nights unbearable. Many of our peers have that kind of habit, thus, I intend to open the first adult toy shop on the sea. It would probably be welcomed by sirens, mermaids, Nagas and other similar kinds of female sea folks. But, it is a pity that the more deeply I researched the intercourse of both genders, the more shallow I realized I was. I felt regretful for my previous shallowness and made up my mind to spend another century here to research this art. Only when I become a master of this art will I open my mobile shop. Even though this beautiful lady is speaking completely indecent words, her eyes were filled with passion and her face was filled with a realization of one seeking the utmost of their path. I instinctively feel that she wasn't lying, that she really intended to devote her entire life into it. I finally understand why I instinctively felt close and familiar to this beautiful siren lady. Isn't it obvious that this is one of the specialty of Luoang Mountain City, gentlemen? Perverts? It is a pity. Perhaps due to the difference in our races, but why are humans unable to understand our point of view? Whenever they hear me speak of this, they would look at me with a very strange gaze. That count even pestered me to no end. HMPH, to us, tools are only used to dispel loneliness. It is a non-living thing. It is a completely different concept from a companion who would accompany us in life and in death. Sigh, it is really difficult to find a soulmate. At this moment, when the siren laments the world's lack of understanding in her, that man stood out. On his face is realization similar to that of Tracy's. This is incredible. This is touching. Partner, over here, it refers to one who shares the same goals. I can understand it. The art of the intercourse between two sexes is really too complex. Actually, I am also searching for my own path and is unable to find anyone who is able to understand me. I can help you. Testing it personally or whatsoever, leave it to me. Ah. Alright, everyone can't stand listening to it anymore. Ignoring the siren whose face lit up after hearing those words, we began on our daily mission beating Bai Feng up. Clutching my head, I am really at a loss for words. The siren in front of me reminds me of those fellows in Luoang Mountain City, making me want to stay as far away from her as possible. What about the tribute? The bottle of the sea god? Isn't it stolen by the Celestial Tower? Tracy shakes her head. Back then, they worked together with a local thief guild. They used the thief guild to conceal their own identity. The ones who did the job were still them. After all, how could a small thief guild deal with the envoy party for a powerful country? Afterwards, in compensation, the spoils of the battle were all given to the thief guild. When realization struck me, a faint ominous omen looms at the corner of my mind. Often, this is a foreboding sign that I have fallen into a pit. What is that thief guild called? Blood Breast Brother Band? Oh, I remember that their insignia was a bloody handprint. It should called the Blood Hand Brother Band. Alright, this name sounds very familiar. The memories of the past felt fresh as though like it just happened yesterday. I felt like I was on the verge of crying. It seems that this time I have reaped what I have sowed. I have worked in vain once again. I roughly know where the bottle of the sea god is. Harl Ois, return me the milk bottle that I gave you. Yes, after arriving at this city, I used the Blood Hand Brother Band as a target practice for my swordsmanship. Back then, I heard that they have stolen some tribute, so I thought that their skills should be up to par. However, I simply ended up sweeping through them easily. Even their guild master was sliced into two with just a single slash. I didn't manage to gain much from the experience. After getting rid of their guild master, I saw a box in the secret chamber and there was an antique bottle inside that looks like it could fetch quite a sum. However, The cat that I was rearing wanted me to buy her a milk bottle, and personally, she also felt that this bottle had an artistic sense to it, so she just took it and used it. There were totally no response from the magic tattoos inscribed on it. Who would have thought that it would actually be an ex-god equipment? Meow. No way. A god equipment bottle suits my palate. If you want it, take out something of equivalent value to trade. Just when I was about to rationalize with that darned cat and prepare to snatch it if it goes awry, a ding sound echoes. I instinctively shivered. This sound never means anything good. Darn it, the system is here to pour salt on my wound again? Cough. You got the correct answer, but there isn't any reward. Congratulations on successfully recruiting another gentleman into the Gentleman Alliance that you built, the beautiful Siren Tracy, whose goal in life is to open an adult toy shop. When the gentleman, perverts, in your Gentleman Alliance reaches 10, you will be rewarded with an epic title, the King of Gentlemen. Its effects is definitely powerful. Now, you are just lacking one more member. Please work harder. Actually, there is one just right before you. I recommend Ogre Cavendish, who likes brawling with himself. Although his gentleman level is a little weak, the system will give you a hand and reluctantly qualify him as one. The current 8 members in the Gentleman Alliance includes, the Shota fetish female elf Momo, the eccentric elf Diana with 3 faiths, Cassio, who is gradually walking down a twisted path in life, Bei Feng, he doesn't need any description, he is a legend by himself, he is the legendary Bei Feng, the Prince Clint who will one day blow a hole through the entire continent, the Crows whose gender is crows, the Princess Ren who is into her great-grandfather, and the Holy Knight Roland who is gradually awakening into a cross-dressing fetish. Cross-dressing fetish you had. You are the one with cross-dressing fetish, your whole family have cross-dressing fetish. You are the gentleman, your whole family are gentlemen. This day became known in history as the Bloody Night of the White Whales. TL2 Ed, haha, trust me, it sounds cooler in Chinese. Crap. Why must they be called white whales? They sound so cute and fluffy and blubbery and huggable. Damn it. Ed to TL, narwhals swimming in the ocean, causing a commotion, because they are so awesome. On the very same day, the Hermit River, which was praised as the flowing chrysoprase, was dyed blood red. TL, chrysoprase is a beautiful green gemstone. He would be able to unite the country even more strongly than any of those fleeting titles could. TL, emperors normally rule by propaganda. He means that he wouldn't have to rely on propaganda, image building anymore. Darsos, you sure know how make people low you conveniently. TL, the exact phrase means Darsos is doing Roland a convenient favor, building up a good reputation for Ren. I have already said that I am uninterested in men. You want to marry me? Impossible, unless you find an Edwina's belt and come to me in a skirt. TL, just like many other characters when they are mad, ESP Momo and Harl Ois, he proclaims himself Lao Nianger, which literally means old woman, but in China, where age is traditionally equivalent to your social position, he is establishing that he is kind of senior, albeit in a very crude way. This phrase is usually used by gangster etc. Okay, I know I keep repeating this, but bear with it. Somehow being unable to bring the gangsterish tone over gets on my nerves. Chapter 102, King of Gentlemen. This world is still full of love. Don't always think that there are schemes and trickery behind everything. After all, this isn't a novel. How can there be so many coincidences and masterminds? Look, didn't it all end as a big misunderstanding? This is my reflection of the Siren incident. Indeed, there is still true love in the world. We must learn to trust others. Meow. Roland, no matter how much you try to turn your eyes from reality, what that will come will eventually come. Open your eyes and look. The black cat on my shoulder mocks me gleefully. Shut up, aren't I pretending not to see it at all? Yes, I am trying to escape from this scary reality. To think that the great church of the God of Law would actually turn into a hideout for gentlemen to exchange all kinds of perverted information. Back then, I was still a normal Drurkin. I had just emerged from my egg when I saw him. He is my birth mother, his crown was so majestic, his feathers were truly elegant. Only a long time later did I know that my egg went missing, and the one who picked up my egg used the livestock they were rearing to incubate my egg. So, The only period when you were normal was the few minutes when you just emerged from your egg. How ridiculous can you be? Also, what is up with that birth mother of yours? He is obviously a male, isn't it? Since he has a crown, he is obviously a rooster. From the very start, you got it all wrong. It is said that a hatchling would regard the first being they see as their mother. Are you Dickens the same as well? Well, I have never heard of it. You are the only one of your kind. Are you born a pervert? Let me catch my breath. There is really too many details on him to retort on. There is really no end to it. TL. Tsukami would be more accurate, but it isn't really an English word. The great hero Odysseus. Indeed, he had a romance with a siren friend of mine. But, he isn't any kind of great hero. He is obviously a gangster and a playboy. It is said that the sirens which he had fooled and laid his hands on number over 20. He is really a bastard. We sirens are really pitiful. We are born full of emotions but yet condemned to a lonely life. The treasures we pick up from the sea always end up getting scammed away by an evil man who pretends to be some hero, such as the Saint Xaura and Dragon Knight. Edwin. Even if by chance, we really managed to meet a good man, he would turn into a sloppy uncle in less than 20 years. Just another nap and he would have turned into an old man and die, leaving us lovelorn for the rest of our life. That's the reason why most of us would find a remote island to reside in. Even so, sometimes when the loneliness gets unbearable, we would still fall for such tricks. Alright, big sister, I know that it is hard for you to find a soulmate to confide in, so naturally, you would become more talkative. But, please do not soil the image of those great heroes in my heart. How did those great heroes who left their mark in history become a bunch of playboys? Alright, if we were to look at those stories where sirens had godly equipment and secrets robbed from them from another perspective, it does seem like they were the ones who bashed into the home of a lonely widower to claim their body and steal their fortune. HMPH, that's only because you sirens are too dumb. Look at us elves. We won't fall in love with those with short lifespan. Those lifespan often shout their slogan of "you only live once," proclaiming that they should not restrain themselves and live radiantly and carefree. Isn't that just another way of saying that they would be irresponsible and reckless? Just like you said, even if you meet with someone good, they would die off the next moment. No matter what, it would end in a tragedy. However, the innocent children are an exception. They are so pure and cute. Those gazes of trust and innocence staring at me. I would be able to slowly dye the color I want on this blank white wall without worrying that they would sow astray and wait for them to mature to reap my fruits. To us elves, what does 20 years count as? As long as we are able to savor the delicious fruit in the end, even if it is a tragedy, I will give in to it. Hello, is it the police? There is a weird Andy here. Momo, can you stop sneaking peeks at me while saying these words? Can you stop salivating? I really feel that I'm in danger. Explosion is an art form. No, explosion is just a means, a method to create a safe haven. HMPH, how shallow. As expected of the short-sighted humans. No wonder your works are filled with the scent of a third-rate craftsman. Even if your bombs are precise and accurate, there isn't a hint of passion and creativity in it. I have seen the art that you speak of. What does it mean to be unsure of the time and strength your explosion? Do you intend to blow yourself up? This is an insult to the entire gnome engineering and alchemy society. Do you know how we treat those foolish dwarves who question the art of the gnomes? We kick their butt and blast them away. Alright, Yingbar, I know that you were excited from escaping from the prison cell. But, we didn't save you so that you can cause destruction. Also, Clint, I know that you are the practical type, but if you don't keep those bombs away, I will hang you on the ceiling. I mean what I say. You too, Bar. If you dare to ignite the alchemy bomb in your hands, I will dump you into the main cannon of Roland number 88 and blast you back into prison. The district where the royal family prison is was also affected by the flood. Naturally, the short fellows who almost lost their old lives in their flooded cells won't calmly wait for their deaths. Without any hesitation, they brought forward the plan to escape from the cell. A giant robot creating havoc at the prison and prisoners escaping from it is the recent headlines. Now, I can only hope that the spies of the royal family are spending their efforts on the battlefield and that Darsos does not turn against me during this crucial period. At the very least, before I finish my planning. Old fellow, even if you saved me this time, don't expect old Loans to give up his own hobby. Next time, Let's spar in the battlefield once more. Old Loans will make sure to return this favor back to you. Also, the fallen Grey Elf, you as well. There will be a day which we will cross blows. Ha, as expected of a smelly and rough shield dwarf. We should have left you there to drown. HMPH. We shield dwarves aren't landlocked villagers who have never seen water our whole life. When Old Loans was hunting snake neck dragons under the water, you were still feeding on breast milk. Oh ho, we don't have to wait for that day to come. We can start right now. Alright, I know that you grey dwarves are mortal enemies with the shield dwarves, but at the very least, consider the camaraderie that you both have just built up as fellow prison mates. Alright, it looks like beating around the bush doesn't work, so I will say it directly. You short things, put down the stools and cups and fight outside. Otherwise, I will also throw you all into the cannon and blast you all away. Somehow, I feel really tired, as though my mental energy is being polluted. As expected, I shouldn't have listened to the words of these fellows. I better continue appreciating the beauty of the world. Big brother Roland, your tea. Oh, thank you. Only my great-great-great-great-granddaughter cares for me. Just when I am thinking so, somehow, I feel that something is wrong. Great-granddaughter fetish and great-grandfather fetish, huh? Such heavy taste. As expected, this black cat would not give me a moment of peace. If she didn't get tricked to become my binded equipment, going by the identity of this undying old demon and her twisted personality, she is definitely worthy of the title of the Great Gentleman. However, her sarcasm made my heart skip a beat. I am also a little suspicious of the obedient behavior of this little lass recently. Also, that system notice which I found it hard to look straight at made my heart beat furiously. However, looking at how she proceeds to serve tea to her temporary mentor, Diana, with a sweet smile on her face, I shake my head and dispel my suspicions. She is probably just paying respect to her elders. The system is never reliable. After all, I am not a cross-dresser who is into female clothing. Naturally, Rin wouldn't be so blind to be into me. After all, we look so alike. If she were to have a crush on me, wouldn't it be narcissism? I hesitate for a moment before finally speaking out. Everyone, prepare for a little bit. I am going out to find two people. When I return, we would probably have a tough battle to fight. Oh right, also prepare to abandon this place. Yes, from the moment the invasion of the sea folks began, the enthronement ceremony has been postponed indefinitely. From that moment on, our official reason of staying here for the enthronement ceremony would be voided, and naturally, we no longer have a reason to remain here. Also, somehow, I feel that something is amiss with this situation. The development of this war is a little too bizarre. If it was just the prelude battle to the sacred war, then the god beast appeared too early. However, if we were to slightly think about it, it all made sense. It isn't difficult for a 9-headed dragon emperor of his level to transmogrify to the form of a human. So, there is a high possibility that he was concealing under the river to overlook the troops. However, the sudden pincer attack of the two fleets caught him off guard. If he didn't make a move, the two semi-gods of All-Land Empire would be more than enough to clear off all of the invading sea folks. Thus, while the 9-headed dragon got to slaughter innumerable lives, he was also forced into a bad situation. As a pet of a malevolent god, he represents the will of the malevolent god. If he were to launch an assault on the coastline, then the level of the battle would escalate immediately. Even if the Order gods don't make a move personally, they would also send an expert dragon slayer down, a direct warrior of a true god, that is an existence very different from the human semi-gods. If he were to escape, not mentioning how the sea folks here would be wiped out, his master would also lose prestige as a result. Thus, not making a move became the ideal choice. The All-Land Empire would probably have some trump cards behind their back. However, seeing how they chose to bomb a few shells every few hours, they are probably afraid to offend the great god if they were to engage its subordinate. The same goes for the 9-headed dragon as well. It doesn't have any intention to leave its original position at all. As long as you don't get on its nerves, it would only spit 2 dragon breaths now and then. While the sea folks are fighting maniacally on the surface, 7 of its 9 heads were lazing about. The horns of the eternal sacred war has just been blown on, and no one is fully prepared yet. If they were to clash with their full might at this point, regardless of who it is, they would only be reduced to cannon fodder, pawns, The nine-headed dragon and all aren't dumb to not see such facts. But, on the contrary, this kind of stalemate made me feel the precariousness of the situation. A stalemate on a battlefield is often created through a certain balance between both parties, and this kind of balance is always temporary. Both of them are only restraining themselves because they are not prepared for the heavy price they would have to pay for the conclusive battle. It is just a matter of time before preparations would be completed. As the stalemate collapses, it would most probably lead to the complete defeat of one party, and going by the current situation, the one to fall is most probably the All-End Empire, who is not fully prepared. If the Queen of Storms were to set her heart to launch a full-out war, even if it might mean her downfall, or if some dumb semi-god were to go and slay her beloved nine-headed dragon, just thinking about the possibility of it happening and what would happen afterwards, I can't help but feel that this city by the river is really unsafe. The technology that Darsos promised me is already in my hands, and the carts of resources are already out of the territories of the All-End Empire. There is a possibility of the contract being fulfilled at any time, so I have to start preparing for my retreat as well. But, before that, Ren, follow me. There are two people who you must meet. After hesitating for a moment, I decided in the end to call another person along. You as well. This time, the person we are meeting is your peer. Your mission is doing what you are best at, brag as much as you can and try your best to coax them over to our side. The Master of Magic Engineering Timmy Lade, Miraculous Alchemist Olivia Wright. They are the creators of the Magic Engineering study, as well as the creator of the future Tier 5 Troop Magic Machinery Dragon. In the future epic war, of all of the rising stars, they are the two brightest ones. War is a stimulant for the development of new technologies and a training ground for troops. In the future war, the magic engineering study that these two came up with will create numerous godly weapons and war equipment. They play a crucial part in the reason why All-End Empire was able to walk to the pinnacle of mankind before their destruction. Of course, in history, they would start proposing the combination of alchemy, magic formations and engineering study only after the war with the underground world. Also, the magic mechanical dragon is a product 60 years from now. Right now, one of the hero of Kajarsi should still be a rookie engineer who relies on selling toys for a living, while the other is an unqualified alchemist who just got expelled from the alchemy campus. Even if they are obscure, unimportant figures at this point, even if history has changed and those two might not rise up as they did, these two people are way too important. Lacking manpower from the start, there is no way I would let them off. The reason why I haven't looked for them all along is because of the reason that geniuses tend to be eccentric, and these two are supreme geniuses who have left their mark in history. Alright, I will be more direct. Back then, my goal for recruiting companions is for them to be normal. The quirks and habits of those two are definitely the most gentlemanly of the gentlemen, so why would I take the initiative to look for them? But now, looking at the system notice, I shake my head helplessly. Exceeding the normal logic, otherwise known as perverted gentlemen, we might not be understood by others. That is because we fervently pursued the path in our hearts while ignoring the eyes of others. But, to a true gentleman, so what if other people are unable to understand us? It is sufficient that those who are also seeking their own paths are able to understand one another. As the king among gentlemen, you are able to comprehend everyone's frustrations and pain. You are the brethren of all gentlemen. Everyone naturally respects you. Honorary title King of Gentlemen, as the gentleman among gentlemen, the legendary uncrowned king, your reputation will spread throughout all dimensions. All gentlemen who you meet will feel as though they are meeting with an old friend, and their intimacy towards you will rise significantly. However, normal people will resent and avoid you. At the same time, as the king of gentlemen, you will attract gentlemen to you. Also, if you were to extend an invitation to them, there is a higher probability they would come under your command. At that moment, even if the strength of the ogre is really not bad and Tracy even guaranteed that he would listen to me obediently and that he would be a good fighter as long as I provide him food, I still hesitated on inviting him to join us. But, very quickly, my dilemma vanished. When the four short fellows escaped from jail, the number of members in the Absolute Gentleman Alliance exceeded the number required, and the system decisively granted this title onto me. Congratulations, King of Gentlemen. As the king who rules over perverts, your gentleman level is unmatched by anyone else. Don't talk to me. Mom, There is a pervert here. Hee hee, I suddenly find you a little more pleasing to the eye. I have already tested the prowess of this aura and the words of the others made me a little happy. However, this pleasing to the eye which came from the Draken made a shiver go down my spine. Cough cough, back to the main topic at hand. After receiving the noble title of the King of Gentlemen, after being so depressed that I almost gave up on myself, I can only hope that this title is as powerful as it is described as and that it would help me coax those two future rising stars. HMPH, I have never heard of that Timmy Lade, but that Olivia is a well-known freak. Of the 13 main lessons, she failed 7 of them, resulting in her expulsion from school. She is almost becoming the shame of the school, so how could she still count as a genius? Unexpectedly, our band had a new companion, the granddaughter of the Holy Knight Cain, Kathleen. She turned out to be an ex-student of Cajarcy 3rd Alchemy Campus and classmates with Olivia. Since the sword is already in my hand, naturally, Kathleen has made her decision. Right now, she is my knight squire and a mage apprentice. Yes, she chose neither the path of a knight nor the path of a mage. Can I try both of them? I really can't make up my mind. From what I know, she hasn't given up on alchemy yet too. The time and energy of a person is limited, learning 3 of them simultaneously is really suicidal, but I didn't say anything. Anyway, reality would force her make a choice sooner or later. Her impression of it would be deeper if she were to crash into the wall herself. When she heard that we are looking for a genius in alchemy, as a fellow alchemist, she volunteered to tag along. But, when she heard that it was Olivia, displeasure could be seen on her face. It should be somewhere here. Do you know exactly where Olivia lives? As expected, I got an affirmative no from Kathleen. Thus, I casually asked a passerby for directions. Excuse me, do you know where alchemist Olivia? Alright, halfway through my words, the burly man's face turns ghastly white the moment he heard Olivia's name. Perspiration flows profusely from him as his eyes swims about. Alright. From the reaction of this passerby, I can roughly guess what kind of person she is. If her gentleman level is high, with the assistance of the King of Gentlemen title, it should be easy to coax her to join us. But, if she is too gentlemanly, that bunch of bastards is already enough to deal with. Should I hope that she would be more normal, or should I hope that she would be more abnormal? Such a dilemma. Boom. Alright, you don't have to show me the way anymore. Little bro, you better get going. I think I found her. The beautiful green mushroom cloud, the shrieks not too far away, and the action of the passerby getting ready to escape spells everything out clearly. This color, looks like bringing along the dwarf anti-poison mask is the correct decision. It looks like there is no doubt about it, there will be another member in the Gentleman Alliance. P.S. RT such as the Saint Xaura and Dragon Knight Edwin TL. I tried googling the names but I couldn't find who the Saint and Dragon Knight is, so I will leave the names here so maybe someone who is familiar with these names could enlighten me. Her golden wavy hair emits the radiance of youth. Her light green alchemist robe is unable to conceal her proud contours that surpasses those of her age. Her face has traces of baby fats, giving it a natural dazed look. In contrast to that, the silver-rimmed spectacles on her face adds a scholarly touch to her tone. Although it is our first time meeting, Olivia gives me a kind of nostalgic impression. Perhaps, it is due to the scholarly feeling that is similar to that of Elise's and Margaret's, especially the silver-rimmed spectacles, which is obviously serving as just an ornament. How do I know that? Not mentioning how Elise's glasses are flat. In this instant, Olivia's spectacles were lacking a lens. But, not only did the girl herself not realize it, there were guests in front of her, and yet she was still muttering under her lowered head about where her experiment went wrong. Even when staring face to face with someone else, the eyes of the young lady is unfocused as her thoughts were in the skies, not even guarded against us in the least. There were food stains on her face and her entire living room is incredibly messy. The first impression that she gives is that she is a very messy person. After roughly scanning the room, I can roughly understand why Kathleen wasn't very fond of Olivia. So it is a conflict due to them being of different levels. The liveliness and youthfulness that Olivia emits, not to mention her proud and moving figure, gives the plain-looking robe an elegant aura as when the same robe is worn on Kathleen. Having a slim and flat figure is advantageous for cavalry battles. How can someone with a voluptuous figure hold firmly onto their weapons in a battle? You all are born physically talented as a knight. Next time I see Kathleen stare at the chest of a beautiful lady, I will make sure to console her like that. Why you all? Alright. My patron is also staring at her with hostility. Looking from the sides, she is even grinding her teeth. So big, how could she be of the same age as me? HMPH, with such size, it will start sagging sooner or later. Alright, allow me to rationally ignore this mysterious cursing and turn the attention back to the main topic at hand. Cough, Miss Olivia, nice to meet you. I am Roland. Although I greeted her, I am unable to bring back her floating spirit. Could it be that I added the magic rock oil too early? Then, I guess I should try adding some fusing reagent. Hey, Miss Olivia, do you hear me? Alright, the alchemist starts to take out her pen and begins drawing and writing on a piece of paper, ignoring our presence. Since you want to play the game, Olivia. Big-breasted girl. The sun has risen. Lessons have started. Kathleen sneaks by Olivia's side and screams into her ear. The echo of her voice lingers in the room for a few seconds, even I was stunned by it. Her resentment towards Olivia is really apparent. Only then did Olivia regain her senses. Ah, Teacher Dana, I am not dazing off, I am really listening attentively to your lesson. Alright. The ex-student immediately stands in an upright position after being alarmed from her junior shouting out her nickname. She seems to have forgotten that she was expelled from the school. Pooh. Senior Olivia, did you think that it was still Teacher Dana's herbology lesson? Rest easy, no one is punishing you this time. We are here for some private matters. Little bamboo stick, stop calling my nickname. You scared me. I thought that teacher was raging at me again. I really don't know why Teacher Dana is always targeting me. Alright, while Kathleen's nickname is exposed, it turns out that big-breasted girl is also a publicly accepted title for Olivia such that even the teachers were using it. Exactly how deep is this grudge? Teacher Dana is still unwedded despite being advanced in age. When she finally found a boyfriend after much difficulty, her boyfriend dumped her due to small chests. Naturally, she would feel her temper rising when she sees you. Can you at least try to sympathize with her? Big-breasted girl. Oh, no wonder she is always staring at my chests. I even wondered if she was just like those word boys. Cough, Alchemist Olivia, there is something I would like to talk to you about. Seeing how their chatter is getting more and more heated up, they probably forgotten that there is an existence of a male here. I try to interrupt their conversation but this smell. It should be a strong troll tonic. Why is it labeled as hair growing reagent? Ying-U retrieves a bottle from the shelves and questions her with a high-pitched voice. Putting his identity as a gold-rank alchemist on the line, regardless of whether it is the color or the smell, it is definitely a troll regeneration tonic. It is impossible for it to be a hair-growing reagent. Oh, that is still incomplete. I considered trying to localize the effect of the troll regeneration onto one's hair, so that no matter how stubborn the baldness is, hair would be able to grow out from one's head. In the end, wait, don't drink it. To an alchemist, trying one's experimental product is the best way to understand its effects. Basing it on his outstanding resistance against such effects, Ying-U opens the bottle cap and gulu-gulu, he drinks it without any hesitation. Oh, Ying-U clutches his stomach as he kneels down. Then, a pitch-black bunch of hair drops to the ground. So, it seems that he was wearing a wig all along. He wasn't trying to test the medicine in the first place, he was making use of this opportunity to fill up his flaws. Did the medicine fail? Will he be okay? No, it is a success. It is just that there is some slight side effects. There is no need to ask anymore. The result before us has explained everything. Thick and long hair started growing out at a rapid pace from Ying-U's bald and shiny head. That gnome was so excited that he started pouncing about delightfully. But, very quickly, the trouble came. The hair has already reached his feet and yet, it was still growing longer and longer. This conceptual design is a success but the problem lies in controlling the uncontainable regeneration ability of the troll tonic. That is to say, the growth cannot be stopped. In just a brief moment, Yingyu has turned into a gigantic hairball and his entire body is filled with pitch black hair. A round fur ball rolls around the floor, even his eyes and face disappears under the bulking mass of hair. Save me, I can't breathe. He wanted to retrieve his own medicine in his clothes to save himself, but he couldn't even stretch out his hands. There were too much hair restricting his movement. Some were even invading his nose. Alright, if we don't start saving him now, he would suffocate to death from his own hair. That would be a hilarious cause of death. I quickly withdraw my sword to sever the hair, but the severed part immediately regrows. This hair is even more troublesome to deal with than tentacle monsters. But, Olivia had an even better idea. She has already ran to her experiment lab by the side and retrieved 3 reagents. She expertly pours them into one bottle and tosses it into the sky. The fluids mixes together along with the dancing of the bottle midair. In a few short seconds, the final product took shape. Then, she throws it forcefully towards Yingyu Pa. As the antidote splashes onto him, the effects of the troll hair growing reagent dispels and his hair starts to fall off rapidly. I am saved. Phew. As his hair falls to the ground, Yingyu sits paralyzed on the ground, thankful that he has survived this ordeal. But, pooh. Haha, what is this? A chihuahua? An egg? Gnomes look a little similar to cats and dogs, and they have quite a bit of hair on their body as well. That's why dwarves often mock them as furry short-legged dogs. This is also why the effect of the reagent just now didn't just cause the hair on his head to grow furiously, but the hair on his body as well. Apparently, Olivia's antidote is just as effective as her hair-growing reagent. If all of his hair were to drop off at the same time, then he would be as ugly as a bald dog would get. Furthermore, on that hairless head, even the eyebrows are missing. He looked completely like a white-cut chicken. He looks a little like the head of a hairless fishman. No wonder Ren and the rest would be clutching their stomach, rolling on the ground from all the laughter. TL. My hair, there were obviously 10 strands previously. It's all gone. Big hair, second hair, number 3. Little 10. You all died tragically. How can you all leave me here alone? How can I live on by myself? Alright, the bald gnome balls on the ground. His action of naming his 10 strands of hair is really poo. I'm sorry, I wanted to say depressing, but looking at the tears flowing down that bald egg, I couldn't hold it in. Please allow me to laugh by the side first. Alright, back to the topic at hand. Yingyu, who has suppressed himself to remain calm, starts to gauge the capabilities of his new disciple. As a new gold-rank alchemist, even the principal of the alchemy campus wasn't up to his standards. Yingyu only has to flash his identity, indicate his willingness to accept a disciple, and show his approval for the rookie alchemist's talent for her, who was just expelled from school, for her pay respects to her new mentor on the spot. At just 15 years old, Olivia is obviously still a rookie. Perhaps, she might hold great potential and many creative ideas are blooming in her head. However, her lack in understanding of basic theories would require her to grind her knowledge for at least a few more decades. Being at bronze rank, she might be considered outstanding among her peers. But, to a master alchemist, she is an obvious novice. Being expelled by the alchemy campus has made her a laughingstock in this circle, causing her paths to further her studies has been cut. At this point, the future miraculous alchemist is just an innovative apprentice. Is this the medicine you made? This smell, it should be savage bull tonic. Judging from its color, there is still room for improvement. What is the strength multiplier ratio? After suffering once, even the master alchemist refuses to test her medicine anymore. I replaced the bull blood with the concentrated blood of a Taran instead, increasing the effectiveness of the original drug by 30 times. If consumed, one's strength could be increased by 3 times. However, the side effect is that the person will find horns and tails growing out from their body and they would randomly go into a berserk state. I saw Yingyu's face twitch for a moment as his hands shook, causing him to almost drop the little bottle in his hands. A normal savage bull tonic would only increase one's strength by 10%. That 300% multiplier along with the transmogrification effects is incredible. But, great returns comes with a price. While their strength would explode in the short term after consuming it, there is a high chance they would die after the effect wears off. Have you tried it? I tried it on Xiao Bei. Ah, that is a dog that my family keeps. After consuming it, He knocked down the wall and it took him half a year to recuperate from that. Now, he thinks that he is a hellhound and often spits saliva at others, breath fire. That green bottle. That is a natural recovery medicine, right, but why would it be red in color? I added dragon mane grass and petrifying lizard reagent into it. It is one of my prized work. While healing one's injuries, it will grant them the ability of stone skin, increasing their defense exponentially. For a bottle to have two different beneficial effects, it is one of the few successful products of mine. The side effect? Ying-U wasn't moved. He can already roughly tell that his disciple here is a little eccentric. That I prepared a potion to undo the petrification and gave it out as a complimentary gift. I even wrote in the label, if you do not want to become a statue, please do not use this medicine when you are alone. It is weird that I am still unable to sell it to anyone. It is entirely reasonable for you to be unable to sell it out. Who would dare to drink a potion that could cause one to turn into stone? The smell of milk. Oh, this is the breast enhancement medicine that my juniors requested me to create. I managed to achieve my primary objective, and this is also one of my few successful works. Hearing her words, Ren's eyes glitter. She is tempted to give it a try, but looking at the bald head and the bunch of freakish medicines, she hesitated. Don't even think of it. This is one of the main culprits to why she was expelled from the school. This can indeed enhance one's breast size. But, to maintain its effects, a bottle of milk must be drunk every hour. During that period of time, all of the milk around the campus were sold out and the scent of milk engulfed the entire campus. Hearing those words, Ren hesitates once more. That side effect seems acceptable to her. There should be something else, right? She shouldn't be expelled just because of this. Suddenly, Kathleen's face reddens as she walks towards Ren and whispers in her ear. The milk can't possibly be ingested continuously without being excreted. When it is accumulated past a certain extent, it would spill out explosively. Back then, this was how our teacher Dana screwed up her blind date. Nowadays, she don't even dare to meet others. Alright, even though she was whispered it softly, but the ears of those in this room were quite sharp. At the very least, I regret hearing those words. The miraculous alchemist would only start to gain fame a decade later. Apparently, we came too early. The side effects of her completed products were much too strong compared to the original effects intended. However, a half-filled bucket has its own use. At least, she would be easy to coax. In this era, the relationship between a teacher and a disciple isn't that different from one between a parent and a child. Since Ying-U is willing to accept her as his disciple, this relationship is much stronger than anything else. Alright, a certain line of heritage where murdering one's teacher is a tradition serves as an exception. At the very least, looking at the harmonious side of the teacher and disciple duo, the kitten on my cat looks at me in resentment. Stop biting me, didn't I get done in by my disciple as well? HMPH, you deserved it. Besides, you actually still dare to mentor someone else, aren't you afraid of the tradition working up once again? That is two different matter. The reason why you got rid of your teacher was because your teacher attacked you, right? The reason why I got rid of you back then was because you had malicious intentions as well. You said that I was looking for it, but I think that you are the one who is reaping what you sow. HMPH, forget it, let bygones be bygones. Just look, I think that this teacher and disciple duo does seem a bit like how we were back then. I doubt so. I think he would impart his knowledge seriously. He isn't like some stingy banshee who requires her apprentice to do some mission to please her just to teach him a spell. No, I am talking about the point where the disciple will get rid of the teacher sooner or later. I mean, just look, didn't she almost succeed already? Look at those things that she created. I bet that within 3 years, if the egghead doesn't die of anger, then he would have died from poison. Unsure of what was touched, after a cloud of red fog scatters, Olivia lowers her head apologetically while the old gnome was on the verge of tears after losing his final strands of hair, all ashes, and completes his evolution into a round egghead. Looking at the sight, I mutter to myself, I'm in. But not 3 years, I bet that he would be played to death within a year. Then what the heck are we still betting for? Why don't we bet whether he would die from anger or poisoning? I think he would most probably be blown to death. Recalling Ying-U's noble title of being called the Alchemist of Explosion, if he were to impart all of his knowledge to the already dangerous Olivia. She is my future subordinate. Am I unknowingly digging a pit for me to fall into by creating a dangerous terrorist? P.S. Read Chapter 104, The Frigid Nightmare from the beginning. Olivia isn't an Outlander. She's the daughter of a merchant from one of the 7 countries of the Southern Lands, Rhodes Kingdom, and she specially traveled here to study alchemy. As a foreign student, she doesn't have any property here and her luggage is scanned. After throwing her medicines and reagents into a spatial equipment, packing her books and notes, refunding the deposit and returning the key to the landlord, she is ready to leave. By the way, the East Mist Communal Country is also one of the 7 countries of the Southern Lands. Half of the land of the 7 countries altogether was part of the original Mist Country. If I were to reunite the Mist Country again, it would mean merging 2 countries together and claiming land from 2 other countries. Under current conditions, it isn't feasible. Olivia is quite delighted, being able to become the disciple of a master alchemist and to leave this country. After all, in the eyes of other countries, the people of the Southern Lands are barbarians who wear fur coats. Although she is happy over the fact that it isn't snowing half of the time in a year, she has met with numerous bothersome matters through these years when she was studying. Now that I'm done with the miraculous alchemist, it is time to look for the master of magic engineering Timmy Lade. While searching for him, I stumble on some trouble. However, this isn't my first time meeting with such problems. There is still 17 to 18 years before Timmy Lade makes a name for himself. The current Timmy Lade. Alright, I wasn't surprised in the least when I saw a snot-filled rascal. At the very least, this time, I managed to define the person in question. This is significantly better than the last time, when the ancestors of the historical heroes that I was looking for were still in their egg and sperm form. But I met with some trouble when persuading the guardian of the kid. Timmy Lade has an elder sister and they were interdependent on one another. When she finally returns, I soon realize that she is a person we are familiar with. Olivia, Kathleen? Teacher Dana. Why are you here? This is my home. I'm still curious over why you lot are here. Didn't you all leave school already? What are you all doing here? Is something up? The calm-looking lady in front of me looks like she is in her early 30s. Her solemn face has a dignified atmosphere to it, but there is a trace of bitterness on her beautiful face. Looking at her flat contours, I recall the milk story from before. Whoa. Alright, it is too impolite to be laughing out like that. Ren, I will make sure to report you to Kelly when we get back. You will be in for some remedial etiquette classes. I laughed as well. At the very least, I didn't spurt out. I retained some basic respect for the lady. Nice to meet you, Teacher Dana. I'm Kathleen's night mentor. I require the help of an alchemist, so Kathleen recommended me to you. This is a long-term contract and I'm afraid that you may lose your job at the school as a result. However, I can ensure that the remuneration will be generous. Furthermore, there will be opportunity for you to climb to higher grounds. This man over here is the Master Alchemist Jing Ubar. He is a gold rank alchemist. You can have a chat with him. Given that Timmy Lade is interdependent with his elder sister, kidnapping the rascal by himself isn't a practical solution. On the other hand, as long as we are able to hire this teacher here, Timmy Lade will naturally tag along with us. However, what is unexpected is that after hearing my words, Dana's face lights up, as though she is moved by my offer. But the next moment, her face sinks again. I'm sorry. While I really do require a new job, we have already decided to leave this city. I'm afraid that I would be unable to accept your good fault will. Leave? Why? Initially, she refuses to speak, but under my relentless questioning, she finally gives in. Actually, the reason is quite simple. She feels that the city isn't safe, so she decided to leave. The reason why she feels that the city isn't safe is because she could see the silhouette of that gigantic figure just outside the window. The gigantic body of the 9-headed dragon Emperor Hydra fills almost half of the entire river. The proud dragon heads could be seen even a few districts away. The dragon breaths every now and then might not mean anything much to the entire city, but to the unlucky fellows who got struck by it, it is definitely an instant death. This isn't some 9-headed snake in some marsh regions who inherited a portion of the dragon bloodline. The sea monster Hydra, which has survived numerous tribulations since ancient times, is a god beast. It has obtained a portion of god power from very early on. If a grade must be given to his bloodline, then his would definitely not be too far off from my double diamond bloodline. When this kind of existence reaches the realm of a semi-god, a human semi-god doesn't mean a single thing in his eyes. From the very start, this nine-headed dragon emperor is almost an invincible existence in the mortal world. Due to its overwhelming strength, the Hydra's movements is also restricted. Its aversion towards fighting is quite apparent. However, if you were to approach him and get on his nerves, then who can you blame when you are the one seeking death? This is like a prologue of a large-scale war game. A few powerful figures come out to lecture you and fight with a few old friends to brush up their existence, but these are all simply part of the storyline. As a rookie, you can just treat it like a movie and just watch the show. However, if you think that you can solo the boss and charge forward, screaming die, evil, I want to slay the dragon and get instant KO'd, who else can you blame for it? At the very least, after understanding the prowess of the other party, Darsos doesn't intend to break through recklessly, nor does he want to anger the master of the nine-headed dragon, the Queen of Storms. Looking at how he is trying to avoid battling while sending letters to numerous great churches, he is obviously waiting for the Order gods to deal with this problem. Of course, if the nine-headed dragon were to come ashore, Darsos would probably stake everything in and make a final stand to protect his country. The Hydra also understands that and it doesn't intend to escalate the battle. That's the reason why the battle is stuck in a stalemate. On the contrary, the ones who are working the hardest are the sea folks under its command. Other than there being a powerful being pressuring them from the back, the main reason for it was because of a coincidence. In order to display their extravagance, the magic lamps were hung by the river coastline and the fuel used is the highest grade luxury of the human world, the expensive mermaid oil. Mermaids are the favored children of the sea, well reputed as the royals of the sea folks. Thus, when the fishmen of the white whale tribe saw those oil lamps, it is equivalent to a human watching an ogre cooking human meat. No matter what, they would go into a frenzy. Naturally, the fight escalated. Even if the sea folks are unable to get past the solid defensive line and the temporary barriers set up, the All-End Empire still suffered considerable losses. The appearance of the nine-headed dragons has caused the Pier district to be submerged in water. There are a portion of civilians who manage to escape on time, but at the same time, there are also a portion who are unlucky and swept away by the river water along with their houses, fated to never appear on land again. My uncle and his entire family lives in the Pier district. Also, my boyfriend's house was struck directly by the dragon's breath. Not a single bone remains of his family. Thus, we decided to leave this depressing city. There are quite a few people who choose to leave the city because of such reasons. Dana is just one of them. It is just that her luck is really bad. Despite just dating her boyfriend for just 2 weeks, he met with such a tragedy. Many of the wars on the continent are the same as well. Regardless of who wins or loses, no matter how sacred or reasonable the reasons for the war are, the ones who suffers first are the weak ordinary civilians. That's great. Oh, I am not talking about your guns. My apologies, lady. I have misspoke. What I meant is that this job requires you to move to a foreign country as well. Since you intend to leave this city, then this job may be suitable for you. Really? Can you fill me in on the details? Alright, since the other party also intends to leave the city, the generous remuneration of the employment contract easily moved the heart of Dana, who was worried for the future. When the 2 future rising stars were finally under my command, I couldn't help but fall into deep thoughts. Since I interfered in their fate, will they still be as influential as they were in history? Will they still reach the pinnacle like how they did previously? But looking at it from another perspective, even if I do not interfere, the fate of those 2 would have changed anyway. Since the sudden invasion of the sea folks would cause Timmy Lade to leave, then regardless of whether he becomes a master engineer or not in the future, there is already no basis for the both of them to work together in the future. If so, there is not a possibility for the emergence of the magic engineering study. However, my interference may relight this possibility once again. Oh well. Why should I think so much about it? At the very least, they are both good buds. If so, I should just wait patiently and groom them as an outstanding rookie. Since I introduced Olivia to you, I should introduce little Timmy to Jinya. If the magic machinery dragon were to be born in the future, it should be in the style of the gnome explosion study. There is an ancient legend in the southern lands. Every year, In the few days when snow blocks all passageway to the Great Ice Mountains, in its deepest core, spirits and monsters will emerge for a festive gathering. Regardless of whether it is the specters, the snow woman, the yetis or the snowman, all that should be present will be present. There tend to be a basis for all legends. For this, it is the Frigid Nightmare. Nightmare, it refers to the demons who looms in our sleep. In reality, the Frigid Nightmare is the common term used for the nameless magic beings living in the ice mountains. They are intangible beings of magic, yet they are corporeal existences. They are just like the aurora lights unique to the southern lands. They come in all shape, forms, colors and varieties, and yet, when you approach them, you realize that there is nothing there at all. There is a few thousand years of history to their legends. Southerners would often tell their own children to not head to the Great Ice Mountain in days where it is snowing heavily. That is until one day, a man who didn't believe the legends intentionally chose to meet the nightmare of the icy mountains on the day of a blizzard. He is the ancestor of the mist royalty. No one knows exactly what happened in the depths of the ice mountains, nor do anyone know who exactly was the one who ventured there. But, after this incident, the Aurora Knights who turned the heads of the entire continent started appearing in this country of snow. Knights have always been a backbone of the human armies. This is due to the fact that all kind of mounts can make the originally weak humans become powerful. Even a rookie climbing up a griffin would make him a tier 3 troop. However, for the weakest of the Aurora Knights to be a tier 4, this proves how powerful the Frigid Nightmare is. The Frigid Nightmare is a spiritual being. It doesn't have a fixed form. It is also due to this aurora-like indeterminate property that allows the knights to have strong adaptation capabilities and high growth potential. The Frigid Nightmare will grow along with the young knight whom it has linked its soul to. They will absorb nutrients from the soul of the knight. That is the reason why the beast teacher or knight is contracted to is different. A large portion of nightmares will choose to assume the form of beings living in the ice mountains such as the snowman and snow leopard. Of course, the one people are the most envious of are the snow women, despite their weak battle capabilities. Alright, I don't think I have to explain the reason for this, all men should be able to comprehend it. However, in order to make it convenient for a group battle, all young nightmares will be trained to assume the form of the storm eagle, armored arctic bear, and ice unicorn. This would allow the charging army of Aurora Knights to be able to switch among a flying assault, furious charge and violent stampede in just a few short minutes. Without any doubt, they are the sovereign of the snow. As a top-tier magic being, the Frigid Nightmares possess high intelligence. A young Frigid Nightmare would already have the intelligence of a 3 to 4-year-old child, whereas a mature Frigid Nightmare is often even smarter than humans. The reason why most of the Aurora Knights who have a snow woman Frigid Nightmare remain unmarried could be attributed to the fact that they have fallen in love with their contractual beast. Due to the existence of the bloodline contract, those of the mist royalty can obtain the acceptance of the Frigid Nightmares with greater ease. Many descendants of the royal bloodline would have a double identity as an Aurora Knight, making it a very prestigious job to attain among the civilians. In our generation, Carwins is also an Aurora Knight. His nightmare is able to transform freely between an ice dragon and an ice behemoth. In normal times though, it would assume the form of the snow woman. Not only is it strong, it is also pleasing to the eye, making others very envious. Alright, at this point, everyone should have already guessed it. The reason why I keep emphasizing that I am envious of those who have a Frigid Nightmare who can transform into a snow woman is because I don't have one myself. In fact, I am not even an Aurora Knight. Silver rank, this is the bare minimum required to gain the acceptance of these proud ice magic beings. Back then, I was still a bronze rank rookie. By the time my power rank reached the standards, our country had already plunged into a long-term war, and changing my power type at that moment wasn't a practical decision. Thus, I could only look on at the cute intelligent elder sisters by the sides of the knights with envy and resentment. Then, in my second life and third life, the Aurora Knights have already went extinct in this continent. If another one were to appear all of a sudden, won't I be exposing my own identity? I am still not that foolish as to seek my own death. Now to the present. My power types have already been confirmed and I have a plan on how I should develop on in the future. Given that I already have too many types of power in my hand, adding in an Aurora Knight into the mix would be much more disadvantageous, compared the benefits it brings. Thus, I can only look at those Snow Woman elder sister with envy and resentment. Yes, Snow Woman elder sister. There were only two people who were accepted by the Frigid Nightmares during this period of time. One of them is a male knight named Elohim. The usual form that his Frigid Nightmare assumes is that of a snowman, or rather, should I say snow ape? Although it is shockingly unattractive, it possesses great strength and incredible agility, making it extremely suited for a chaotic battle. Other than because that nightmare was a companion of his ancestor, a greater part of the reason why he was accepted is because he is the only gold rank knight of the Royal Knights. The advantages to using a nightmare left behind by their ancestors is that they are able to skip by the long cultivation period. However, this would also mean that many gaps will appear in the coordination of the knight and the nightmare. They won't be as harmonized in thoughts compared to a duo whose knight cultivates his nightmare from young. As for the other newer or knight, it is Ran who I pulled up forcefully using the golden ring. Right after she reached silver rank, the bunch of incredulously proud nightmares who refuses to approve of anyone took the initiative to look for her to contract with. In the end, she ignores the strongly recommended heavyweight ice boar and ice giant and chooses a snow woman called Sava. Truthfully, those heavyweight giant monsters are the best way to bring up her pathetic fighting capabilities and grant her the ability to survive, an aspect which had been very worrying us. They are all very ugly. Look at how beautiful and mature big sister Sava is. I must choose her. Alright, should I say as expected of a princess? The moment these words are spoken, the hearts of those hulking nightmares were broken. But, I also approve of her decision. Although the Snow Woman form is extremely weak in close combat, they have the strongest power of ice, allowing them to forge an ice armor and ice weapon in the shortest period of time. At this moment, this is the ability that we require the most. With the help of Siren Tracy, we swam straight to the bottom of the river. Even if we met with the Fishman patrol teams, as a high-tier race of the sea folks, she can easily command those lower-tier fishmen to retreat. It is very probable that even a mermaid would be unable to float when equipped with plate mail and heavy weapons. Thus, to ensure the convenience of movement underwater, all of us were dressed lightly. By the time we reached the secret underwater base, the giant snowman forged a whole set of equipment for his own knight before heading to one side to prepare for battle. On the other hand, Sava created a weapon of ice for everyone else. Magic ice sword attack power, 10 to 12 tier, elite if the wielder is an or a knight, the attack power will be doubled and the weapon will go up by 1 tier. Frost blade, deal additional 5 frost damage. Indestructible ice, the extreme freezing magic of the Frigid Nightmare has made this sword of ice to be much stronger than steel. You can feel free to cross blows with adamantine weapons. Frostbite, anyone who touches this magic sword with bare skin will suffer 1 damage. Second, if the wielder were to put on Arctic wolf gloves enchanted by a Frigid Nightmare, he would be immune to this effect for half an hour. Our Aura Knights are not affected by frostbite. Now that everyone has a handy weapon, the panting Sava starts to forge an armor for me. This is the ultra heavy armor for a job unique to only the Mist Country, the Avalanche Defender. When this heavy armor is put on my body with a door-sized gigantic shield in my hand, I turn completely into a moving fortress, assuming the role of a tanker, which we are sorely lacking. Although the ice armor also has the frostbite effect which hurts the enemy as well as the user, my Titan body ability renders this pathetic 1 damage. Second, null. Security alarms echo throughout the entire base. Even the slowest of the undeads would have already noticed us, who were preparing for battle. Looking at the undead knights, zombies and skeletons press closer, I stroke the pale justice in my hands and ignites the sacred inferno on the blade of the sword. The undeads who should have long returned to their graves, using my sacred inferno, I shall bestow upon you purification and eternal rest. After finishing the standard declaration of a holy knight when facing undeads, I somehow felt displeased and muttered to myself, "Why does that war cry sound so uncomfortable to me?" Forget it, I think I will just use the war cry for charging. Oh holy light, that evil is worth the fight. Chaotic battle, greater than trying to refer to battles where everyone do their own things. Imagine the sight when you send tons of foot soldiers in and they just fight as hard as they can to survive, something like that. And the final war cry, if I remembered it correctly, he used during the Dragon chapter, where Adam and the rest stalked him to ensure his safety, but I'm a bit lazy to check it up, so, X. Chapter 105, Sword Saint. Give me 10 seconds. After a roar, I unsheath both of my swords. Facing the wave of attacking undeads, I charge at the very forefront of the group without any hesitation. So fast. Killing is an art form, and art form requires the devotion of one's mind and body, perhaps even one's soul. There's no need to think excessively on the battlefield. Just let go of everything and allow your body to dictate everything. The gasp of surprises behind me no longer matter as I dedicate my entire body and mind to swinging my sword. Swordsmanship is always the foundation of everything for a close combat fighter, and indubitably, I am a master swordsman. On the Ike continent where cold weapons reign supreme, swordsmanship is a skill and art of death. Through thousands of years of inheritance and development, each country and region has a sword style that belongs to them. A pure warrior might not have the magnificent holy light of a holy knight or the profound magic spells of a magic knight, but they still continue to stand at the pinnacle of close combat jobs. The only thing that they rely on is the 3-feet-long sword in their hands and their physical body that is forged thoroughly through countless training and relentless hardships. The sword is the king of all weapons, and warriors who walk in the path of the sword is always in the majority. Even though everyone can train in the way of the sword, those who manage to reach high altitudes are few. If one surpasses the limits of mortals in the art of sword, they would earn the title of a sword saint. This has nothing to do with the identity of the person, his job, or even his power rank. The only thing that factors in here is his skills with the sword in his hand. Sword saint, the saint of swords, is a sword bearer who has exceeded human standards. I am a sword saint. What's more, I am one without any inheritances. I am a wild sword saint who grew through battles. Self-taught, my swordsmanship isn't as mystical and diverse as the mainstream swordsmanship in this world. It doesn't have the 10,000 years of noble heritage of Carolyn's soaring eagle sword, and I am unable to use the soaring strike. It isn't as unpredictable as Solo's illusory dragon sword, and I am unable to create 9 clones with a swing of mine. All ends collapsing dragon sword is violent and grand. That continuous wave of Gianku makes me envious. As a holy knight who grew up in the holy church, I didn't learn slightest bit of the elegant and beauty-mist swordsmanship of my homeland. Compared to the 1,000 years of heritage of different countries that created profound swordsmanship which could recreate the effects of magic, my sword comprises the simplest art of killing. It is the crystallization of my experience in battle, simple, inelegant and ugly. Even more so, despite being a wild swordsman as well, even before he received the inheritance of the Phoenix, Adam's swordsmanship had a fleeting and grand feeling to it, reminiscent to that of a master swordsman. After his inheritance, as his powers soared, his sword became even more elegant. The faint image of a phoenix would appear, and the call of a phoenix would sound whenever he swings his sword, making it look extremely magnificent and striking. When he fights with his full might, the battlefield could be seen even a few kilometers away. In fact, that's how the praise a sword from the Red Lotus fills the sky with the afterglow of the Phoenix came about. As half of a swordsmanship mentor to him, my swordsmanship still remains at the lowest level and consists only of basic sword skills. The only thing incredible about it is that it is just that bit faster, that bit more accurate and that bit more deadly. The first thing I learned was basic swordsmanship. After so many years, after learning countless famous sword arts and dozens of profound philosophy, the one that I was the most adept at and use the most frequently is still the simplest and most practical basic swordsmanship. Basic swordsmanship, just like how it sounds, is the basic fighting sword skills that every swordsman, holy knight and dark knight will learn. Stab, hack, flick and raise, these are the basics. Fast, accurate and deadly, these are the main focus. Strength, reaction and agility, these are the foundations. Everyone knows them, but if someone were to say that they could become a sword saint with just these, the listener would probably laugh his teeth off. The Red Lotus Sword Saint is a well-known great sword saint recognized by the entire world. In fact, his swordsmanship is even treated as the pinnacle of humans. However, whenever that lad Adam pits his swordsmanship against mine, he has never gotten the better of me. The reason? Truthfully, I don't even know myself. Perhaps it is due to the fact that I am extremely fond of playing with swords. Just by using swordsmanship that everyone is able to learn, I still became the most famous sword saint of that era. The sacred sword in my left hand turns into a radiant light, whereas the magic ice sword in my right turns into an elegant aurora. The beautiful flashes of sword reminds one of the wings of a butterfly as the colorful wings spread open into a 3-meter wide luster. Bringing it down violently, the entire ground trembles, while I myself have already turned into a hurricane that brings about destruction. The two swords with differing attributes in my hands and holy light added a bit of color to my standard swordsmanship. The giant blade in my left hand that was intentionally forged thicker is blunt, but the heavy body of the sword itself makes it convenient for me to execute different kinds of swordplay. The zombies have overwhelming strength. Their skin is thick and they don't fear pain. Decapitate it with a strong slash first. Then, by pulling the sword through at a slanted angle, its pivot bones would be broken, reducing the indefatigable zombie into a heap of flesh. The skeleton general's skeleton rack is as tough as metal and they aren't afraid of stabs and sharp weapons. By twisting the blade of the weapon, the giant sword turns into a giant club. With a smack, its bones would be rattled and might even fall apart to the ground. Death Knights, I have heard that you're good at martial arts and that you can use dark magic and necromancy. Hey, what do you mean by falling in a single blow? Why are you weak? Even little Lionheart was 1,000 times stronger than you when he just resurrected. Banshee, it is said that you are immune to physical damage, that you are adept at all kind of weakness spells and curses, and that you are the nemesis of melee combatants. Curses are indeed troublesome. Face my secret sword, 7-bitter sword. Hey, why are you escaping? Can you have some pride as a Hydra undead? You really threw the face of banshees. Look, even the queen of banshees on my shoulders can't stand watching you any further. Knock, flick, smash, chop. Heavy hammer, rapier, cudgel, katana. Despite it being a bulky giant sword that is difficult to use, many different fighting styles are executed through it. The swordsmanship fundamentals that I have accumulated allows me to turn the giant sword into a sure kill attack catered directly to the weakness of my opponents. From the start of the battle, an enemy would fall from every single sword of mine, and my armor has yet to suffer a single attack. That is only considering the ice sword in my right hand. It is even simpler for the sacred sword in my left. After I infuse sufficient holy light into that sacred sword, the Judgment of Justice starts to declare the doomsday for the undeads. The Judgment of Justice, activate the Soul Gemstone's Judgment ability. When this sacred sword strikes on a chaos being, the target will be forced to undergo judgment. If the target fails to pass the judgment, the target will be directly destroyed thoroughly. Duration, 10 minutes. This ability can be used 3 times daily. As long as the sword strikes them, even if it is just a slight scrape, the fragile undeads would be reduced to a pile of ashes. After realizing that this ability is extremely powerful against undeads and finding the undead's ability to retaliate pathetic, the sword on my left hand, which was used primarily for defense, starts to be utilized for offense as well. Immediately, my killing efficiency increases multiple folds. The ice-heavy armor only has the weight of slightly bulkier chainmail. My ordinary-looking physical body possesses overwhelming brute strength. Despite being dressed in thick armor, I am still able to execute the footwork of a swordsman. However, there is actually no need for me to. Not to mention getting injured. To this point, I haven't even been struck once yet. I finally realized that I have made an error using those fellows in Luhuang Mountain City to gauge the strength of these newborn undeads. That is just like how even though a little child in kindergarten and a powerful war veteran are both humans, there is an overwhelming difference between the two. If we were to use the might of the special forces to deal with little children, they would be able to wipe out an army of them easily. Just as I was getting high from killing, the sight in front of me turns completely empty. There isn't any more enemies in my surroundings. Thus, making use of this opportunity, I flip the sword in my left hand around and grips it in reverse. Then, I start to gather strength. Slow, blunt and foolish. Yet, you all still wish to pit your skills against mine? Dream on. After a furious roar, I hold out both of my swords as the bright light flows through them. My whole body starts to turning into a hurricane of death. Following the whirl of both swords, the Gyanki-filled tornado starts to overflow. The excessive and rampaging Gyanki starts to expand while the rapidly rotating blades brought the Gyanki into rotation as well. In the end, I turned into a formless but deadly storm of Gyanki. Ding, Congratulations for comprehending the general legend rank secret sword, Blade Storm. Using this skill, you will turn into a fast rotating storm of blades. The rotating swords and Gianki will severely damage all enemy land troops in the surroundings. Under the effect of Blade Storm, you will not feel remorse, regret or fear. Other than death, nothing can stop you. Prerequisites: 20 strength, 10 agility, 15 stamina. For those who get carsick, seasick or have low agility, please use with caution. There is no way I will tell you that the invincible sword Saint Hodor got dizzy from spinning too much and vomited. A group of kobolds took advantage of that moment of weakness to kill him. Rather than comprehend, it is actually more like recalling memories. Basically, sword skills can be executed once the basic stats fulfills the prerequisites. I already can't remember the number of sword skills that I have comprehended along the way. There is a reason why Blade Storm is the favorite general secret sword used by sword saints. It has a wide AO, allowing swordsmen to get rid of a large bunch of enemy at one go. Even more so, it is an effective means of dealing with a situation when one is surrounded. Of course, its weakness is that one would be unable to stop once they start using the skill. Not to mention, their path of movement would become very clear. If one were to meet with a strong enemy, then that turning top would become an easy target. At this moment, the undeads who are struck by the hurricane of Gianki found themselves put in a situation as though they were attacked by two swords simultaneously. Those who were able to survive past 2 seconds could already be considered strong. Along my trail, there is not a single undead who is spared from it. The Blade Storm consumes everything in its range. When I finally stop, the battlefield around me has been cleared. Only the corpses of hundreds undeads remain on the floor. Ha ha ha, I am already invincible. What the heck, where did this come from? Looking at my newly arrived opponents, I, who was just carried away a while back, immediately turn around to flee. The reason? The newly arrived undead army has pulled out high-tier siege cannons. In the distance, the airships which are slowly activating starts to turn their magic siege cannons towards us. With just a single hit, I would definitely be reduced to ashes and I can prepare to reincarnate once again. The rewards are not bad. In a short moment, these experience gift packs allow me to level up again. Also, the system notice about me receiving some spoils of war seemed to have popped up a while back, but it isn't the time to be organizing my gains now. When I returned back to my teammates, I found them all looking at me as though I was a monster. After all, I only said that I would be charging in for 10 seconds to draw the enemy's firepower. However, not mentioning how I only went in for a couple of seconds, I single-handedly cleared the undeads by the pier. I'm sorry. They were simply too weak. It is just so convenient for me to cut them up, so I didn't leave anything for you all. Why are you all looking at me like that? Oh, I never told you that I am a sword saint? Alright, they shake their head harmoniously. Only Kelly, who knew in advance, nods her head slightly with a smile. On the other hand, Ren looks as though she is witnessing the vicissitude of life. It seems to contain a slight trace of surprise, regret and excitement. As expected, his usual slovenly and unreliable look isn't his true self. The true Holy Knight Roland is still extremely fearsome. I am still far away from his standards. Initially, she was still delighted over becoming an Aurora Knight, even more so after seemingly possessing sufficient power to suppress her mentor, who is still bronze rank. However, from the looks of it, even if he went into decline, the legendary Holy Knight Roland is still a legend. Just by that swordsmanship of his, he is able to dominate the world. Bronze rank Holy Knight Sword Saint, incredible. On the other hand, the new page Kathleen is also shocked. Initially, she was dissatisfied with the strength of her mentor. But now, it seems like not only is he qualified to teach her, he could even teach a thing or two to her father. After all, swordsmanship requires a massive amount of practice, fundamental strength and the accumulation of battle experience. Holy Knights focus most of their time on the holy light and divine arts. For a sword saint to appear among the Holy Knights who tend to be subpar in swordsmanship is already incredible. But, to actually witness a low power rank Holy Knight attaining the strength of a sword saint goes totally against their common sense. If only your magic had half of the talent of your swordsmanship, you wouldn't become the embarrassment of spellcasters, becoming a cannon tower. As usual, the black cat on my shoulder puts me down. As usual, I ignore her words. However, It isn't the time for us to be chattering idly. The mage towers used to defend this secret base starts to glow, and on the tallest mage tower, a dark figure stands out. Looking at the familiar skeletal rack filled with death magic makes me sigh, to think that it is another nude fanatic. Do you think you can choose not to wear clothes just because you were a lich? How uncivilized and immoral. The name of liches were soiled by people like you. If this was Luang Mountain City, you would have been bashed by the town security. What is even more dangerous at this point is the airships, which are already floating in midair by the port, is already starting to charge the black holes of the magic cannons. However, I am not in the least affected by such a sight. Pa! After a snap of the fingers, two cannons open fire at once, but boom! Boom! The target of the air fleet isn't us but the two mage towers in the secret base. A hole opens up in one of them and starts to collapse. I never met such a lousy cannoneer. That short fellow over there, raise the altitude by 10 degrees and move 30 degrees to the left. The voice of the ace hunter Loans echoes from midair. From his gleeful commands, it seems that the blast which destroyed the tower came from him. Idiot, we were aiming at the lich. Then, you were even more off. You all hit the wrong tower. Raise the altitude by 40 degrees and move 30 degrees to the left. At this moment, Diana and Crows appear on two different airships. See, we attracted the attention of the other party to allow the two of our top fighting power to bring the gnomes and dwarves who are skilled into using cannons to sneak on the two ships by the port and take them. Plan is successful. Ha, I have already said that I am invincible. King, looks like this word really can't be said. A few warehouses in the secret base opens and in an instant, 4 identical airships start to float upwards. Looks like our plan isn't flawless. After all, the airships aren't real ships. Since they are able to fly, they are completely able to hide in the base. Those on top, focus on dealing with the airships. Leave the lich to us. Leaving the spellcasters to do as they please is almost like courting death. Looking at the lich who is chanting under the protection of a group of death knights, the snowman knight below who serves as a tankish charges at the forefront. Since the knights have begun to charge fearlessly, how can I lag behind? Stab, hack, flick and raise, these are the basics. TL, flick, think of a motion which the hand doesn't move, just the wrist. Raise, something like a sky uppercut but with sword, according to videos. TL, Jianki, greater than sword beam, imagine Getsuga Tensho of Bleach, where sword energy leaves the tip of the sword. I will leave it in Chinese as so far still can't really find a word for it. Italics are used for Hani-Upnian translated words and sounds, although I keep forgetting to italics sound. Ding, congratulations for comprehending the general legend rank secret sword, Blade Storm. TL, general as in it is a skill that all sword saints would be able to use. Snowman Knight. TL, the snowman in this case is probably just like the snow woman, a human form spirit, rather than a bulk of ice. Snowman Knight refers to the Aurora Knight contracted with the snowman. Chapter 106, Aerial Battle. Only by knowing your own strength and your enemy's prowess will you be able to survive 100 wars. This isn't a new adage, but I have always believed that if one isn't even sure how much troops their enemy holds in their hands, then the war shouldn't be fought in the first place. Those who think more brings victories, while those who think less brings losses, needless to say not thinking at all. Often, the conclusion of a negotiation is determined by the current circumstances of both parties. I believe that the results of war are also the same, determined before it even begins. A war that doesn't bring interest and without a possibility of victory is a war that one shouldn't start. TL to ed. This is famous phrase in China which before a war, the king and generals will gather to discuss their current situation and the enemy's situation. So, the more they know, discuss, the more they win. The less they know, discuss, the more they lose. Due to the sudden appearance of the 9-headed dragon emperor, all and the sea folks are stuck in a stalemate. However, stalemates are always temporary. I reckon that there will be a twist occurring very soon. No matter which side gains the upper hand, it isn't a good thing for me and the East Mist. If Alland were to achieve victory, Darslos's seat on the throne would be stabilized. Given his character, he would definitely seek vengeance against us. If the sea folks triumph, this city would probably no longer be the territory of human. It isn't impossible for it to become like the legendary underwater city Yaso, submerged completely underwater. Thus, I decided to make use of this stalemate to gain control over the underwater base, to use it as my base of operation, as well as to obtain the technology and a sample of the air fleet. This way, if we choose to stay, we may be able to reap more benefits, and if the situation sours, we also have the option of escaping. Anyway, we have already earned enough. The contract could be fulfilled at any moment, and we are sorely lacking time. We only have one opportunity. If our first attack were to fail, it would be much more troublesome the next time around. With the assistance of the Queen of Banshees, it isn't difficult for us to sneak a few low-tier undeads in. Before the attack, we have already done sufficient surveillance and preparation. This structure of this secret base isn't very complicated. There is the pier where the ships are built, the mage district where the mages live, residential area and research lab for the craftsmen, as well as 6 tall mage towers, which is the most dangerous defensive structure here. A squadron of around 300 White Wolf guards are stationed here. Other than those, the only force who could be considered as a fighting power are the mages. Going by the usual 10-to-1 exchange ratio, there should be 30 of them who are qualified to be converted into Death Knights. As for the conversion of mages to banshees, skeleton mages and similar high-tier undeads who possess intelligence and the strength of a silver rank at the moment of their awakening, the success rate is even lower. No matter what, I don't think that it is possible for it to exceed the number of Death Knights. That is to say, the number of high-tier undeads shouldn't exceed 100. But, from the looks of the current situation, there are 100 Death Knights already. For there to be such a high exchange rate, there can only be one possibility. The King Carlohan has been secretly training in necromancy since young. For a king of a country to be a necromancer of minimum saint rank, it seems like he has great ambitions. Very quickly, the sentries found a pit with a few hundred people inside. Looks like after he became aware of their isolation, in order to reduce the consumption of rations, he started a slaughter. Realizing that something is amiss and suspecting that they will be unable to get into contact with the outside world within a period of time, Carlohan eventually decided to expose his identity as a necromancer and converts himself into a lich. Then, he converts his subordinates into undeads. With the assistance of the sleepless undeads, the pace of the construction went faster than planned. In reality, while scouting about, we discovered the Soul Gathering Tower, which is an undead conversion tool used to convert living beings into undeads. It is unsure whether it is secretly built before or after the isolation. This kind of evil tool that plunges living beings into endless pain while converting them into mindless low-tier undeads is definitely the worst of the worst. Such undead conversion tool is banned even in ZUO. After all, although this tool is able to convert beings into undeads on a large scale, anything that goes in will be converted into cannon fighters like skeletons and zombies. Besides, the undeads created through this method are lacking, making it difficult for them to advance in power rank, needless to say to becoming a high-tier undead to awaken their intelligence. Also, it isn't like the ZUO Empire doesn't have living civilians, although a large portion of them serves as slaves. Besides, their many necromancers fulfills the requirements for conducting a conversion. This kind of efficient but ineffective conversion method is only suited for wars when they urgently require pawns to slaughter a city. The previous pit of a few hundred people have already touched the bottom limit of the rules of God. A slaughter along with the undead conversion tool. King Carlohan's actions words can no longer be described using the word brutal. This also gives the law jobs a reason to launch a crusade against Carlohan. Otherwise, I would still have to come up with an excuse to fill the loophole of crows and the rest. At this moment, the enemy's forces mainly consists of brainless skeletons and undeads who were probably converted from the craftsmen and their family. Looking at the dawning quantity, the forbidden undead conversion tool does lives up to its name and reputation. Carlohan had done well to make the full use out of his tools. I had done sufficient intelligence gathering beforehand, but it is impossible for anyone to be able to process all the variables that could happen in a battle. What that I wasn't aware of but expected to happen is that they were efficient in their work. There are actually 4 light assault airships in the storage already. Boom. Boom. The sound of the cannons shot from mid-air echoes and black smoke gushes upwards. Occasionally, some metal pieces and wooden planks would fall to the ground. The cannon battle between fellow airships seems to be even more intense and savage than the other battles occurring at the moment. Eagle No. 1 Assault Airship, its original model being the smaller frigates used on battle on the surface of the water, is a prototype for the air fleet. With a magic-charged main cannon, 2 engineer-type side cannons and 2 fishhook cannons, it is originally a powerful weapon used for water battles. It can hold up to a capacity of 30 people, but 5 to 6 members are sufficient to operate it. At this level, the air fleet is still stuck in stage of imitating the water fleets and has yet to attain the level of what it is 10 years later, the formidable might of an army conducting a sudden assault from the skies. In my eyes, 2 legend mages would be more than sufficient to smack them down. Although it isn't very powerful, what is important is that it is the original prototype. The turbine system as well as the air control system on the ship is the most classic model. Being the initial design means that its structure is simple, making it easy to analyze and imitate. This is the reason why even though ON started to sell some of the lower tier airships, they refused to sell this primitive Eagle series. Originally, in terms of manpower, we were in a disadvantageous situation. However, as Yingthe brought a few gnome engineers to join our ranks, compared to the slow and blunt newborn undeads, the shipmates on our side turns out to be much more capable. As for the ace hunter who had been wielding a rifle for more than 200 years now, he displays astonishing capabilities in maneuvering the cannons. Not only is the main cannon he maneuvers a sure hit, he even had the leisure to calculate the angle for another cannon on the ship. Newborn undeads are still fragile. The undead army of Carlohan lacks a core force. The intelligent undeads under his commands are extremely limited. Not to mention, even though most of them are manipulated by his necromancy, they still possess hatred and resentment against him. After all, for the average human who worships the Order gods, they would rather die and enter the heavenly realm than to be reduced to a bloodthirsty undead that is viewed with hostility by the rest of the world. The personnel he can use is limited. A group of them has to be dispatched to the airships. 2 skeleton mages brought 2 middle tier undeads who can barely talk up to the airships. At the same time, they order a group of skeletons and zombies to serve as thrower. The skeleton mage who serves as the captain is most probably a mage in the past, for him to forget to operate the cannons while he gets absorbed in fighting. Or perhaps, he realized that he is unable to hit any targets with the cannons, so he decided jumped on the deck and used magic instead. This, on the other hand, sent a reminder to crows instead. Thus, a thunderstorm appears over their heads. As the legend rank, Crow's intervention made the scales of the battle in the skies tilt completely. As lightning rampages, the enemy's airship suffers consecutive lightning strikes, such that their sail ignites and black smoke gushes from the wooden platform. In the Elf Kingdoms, Storm Druid is a job that is able to rival the Fire Mage in terms of their prowess as a cannon tower. When they unleash their full strength, it is as though dozens of main cannons suddenly came to life. Huala. After a barrage of attacks from cannons and lightning strikes, the Eagle warship labeled with the number 3 starts to break apart from the center. Then, the rear of the ship carrying the energy system explodes and the front of the ship starts to plummet from the sky. At the same moment, the mage tower where Lich Carlohan is in emits intense red light. Then, a gigantic explosion fireball is shot with a crimson red glow. Boom! Even though Crows tried to intercept the spell with her lightning, the gigantic fireball still hits the number 1 airship where Diana is at. The offensive ability of fire element spells are formidable. The strategic level explosion fireball that Carlohan cast with the augmentation of the mage tower isn't something Crow's lightning storm is able to compete with. The next moment, the misfortune that happened on number 3 happens to its brother ship number 1, as it begins to fall apart amidst explosions. Jump from the boat. The good habit of the gnome's engineers to always be prepared against explosions saved them. The next moment, white color parachutes open one after another. That is the gnome parachutes that were hung on the deck of the ship. But, it is a pity that, as a close combat holy knight who often dons heavy armor, Diana is completely useless in an aerial battle. Ever since they successfully took control of the boat, she became like a decorative ornament and had free time on her hands. However, when she found an all-in Missler mithril body plate, she was extremely delighted. This is a treasure that cannot be found on the market. Recalling that we are still in a battle, she wears it without hesitation. Alright, I can understand the desire for good defensive gears of a melee knight who serves as a long-term meat shield, but it is apparent that the parachute cannot carry a fully geared Holy Knight. The Legend Knight who is shrieking as she plummets downwards serve as an ideal example. Even for a Holy Knight, it is important to allocate some stat points to intelligence. Even if she is unable to contribute to the battle, dying from stupidity is still very embarrassing. Throwing a jar of apples from a height of 100 meters downwards, regardless of whether the jar shatters or not, the apple inside would definitely be reduced to apple jam. If Diana were to really crash down, regardless of whether she is a Holy Knight or not, she will definitely be reduced to elf jam amidst the fragments of the armor. With her prowess as a legend rank, if she didn't don on this full body armor, she could still think of a means to survive. But now, even as she regrets her actions terribly, there isn't anything she could do. Moon Knight Diana died in AD 1897. Cause of death: pilfering and too dumb. Silly big sister, why are you so foolish? She can already imagine what those callous fellows would write on her grave. Ah, save me. This kind of death is really too embarrassing. I have yet to complete my life goals. My savings are hidden in my boots. Please help me hand them over to Vicador. Also, Lord Patricia, please guide my way. I repent to the Holy Light. Lord Woomians, I have yet to date. I don't want to die. Save me, Lord Woomians. Alright, she even starts to close her eyes and begins on her final prayers. But suddenly, she feels her body lighten as the speed of her descent slows. Soon, the descent seems to have stopped altogether. Idiot! At least you remembered to ask to be saved, you aren't incorrigible yet. Opening her eyes, she sees a familiar person. Just that, the golden wings which were spread open, the burning halo of flames on the head and that legendary stance reminded Diana of a certain legend. Angel? Am I dead? Lord, why are you here as well? Are you dead too? Panic shows on the face of the already traumatized Legend Knight. The moment she opens her mouth, she fully exposes her true nature of being blurred despite her mature appearance. Indeed, in the legends, angels are the one who guide the souls of the dead. However, why do I feel uncomfortable at her words? I take back the words that I have said. You are indeed incorrigible. What do you mean by why are you here as well? I have never been to the heavens in my whole life. My wings flap and I circle in an arc, avoiding the storm arrows and fireballs shot from the mage towers. I will talk to you about that ridiculous repentance of yours when we return back. If the three gods were to hear it, with a worshipper like you, they probably would burst into laughter. But now, let's cooperate and deal with the important matter at hand first. In the midst of gliding, I glance at the situation below. They were already in the midst of fighting. Other than the endless flood of brainless pawns, the main force of the enemy is obviously the Death Knights converted from the White Wolf Guards. Most of the newly awakened White Wolf Guards are still in a period of confusion and have yet to recover sufficient intelligence for them to use black magic and their race talent, such that is a bit pushing it to say that they are Death Knights. They seem more like slightly higher tier zombie warriors. Even so, they are still hard to deal with. There are no other reasons. The equipment of the White Wolf Guards are simply too good. The Missler Savage Sword carries a crimson red glow as the corrugated blades roars. The specially crafted swords of the East Mister Royal Guards are unable to withstand more than a single blow from it. Furthermore, the Missler Savage Javelin is a large AO weapon of destruction. With just a single throw, a giant pit is blasted open. A moment of folly and one could probably die from them. However, what is fortunate is that their intelligence are simply too low, causing them to commit fratricide continuously in the midst of the chaotic battle. When the javelin is thrown, those who are blasted are basically their own pawns, causing the Death Knights and skeleton mages who are leading the troop to stomp in anger. Due to King Carlohan's identity as a necromancer, the number of Death Knights are much higher than expected. When I flew upwards to save Diana, the Snowman Knights is the only powerful meat tank remaining below. Not to mention, the enemy were assisted by mage towers. In a moment, the fight below stalls into a stalemate. It is fortunate that Beifeng and Cassio are here. Against the dangerous Savage Javelin, their arrows can easily ignite them in advance, thus reducing casualties on our side. However, I didn't have the intention to interfere with the fight below. After all, it is important for one to take the initiative in a battle. Since I don't have much time left in my transformation, it is important for me to make the fullest out of it. As for the battle on the surface, I reckon that it is about time. Boom. Boom. As expected, very quickly, an explosion from not too far away catches my attention. The secret pieces which I have prepared prove their worth. As expected of Clint and Yungu, throwing them into frontal battle is a complete waste. It would be more suitable for them to cause destruction from the back. Following the explosion, the light of the mage tower starts to flicker before going dark completely. Obviously, Clint and the others managed to fulfill the requirement for their explosions, destroying the energy source of the space before the spare generator and the smaller backup energy source in the mage tower activates. Let us accomplish our primary goal. Primary goal? That is Carlohan himself. To expend oneself against an army of undead is always foolish decision. The endless sea of undeads doesn't know the concept of tiredness and morale. They are always able to drain their enemies of their stamina and blood in a prolonged fight. Against this type of enemy, slaying their commander is always the wisest decision. As long as the undead lord falls, his army would nationally become meaningless. They might even start to disintegrate on their own. The fact that the mage tower is temporarily ceasing their fire means that the sky is mine once more. Bringing along our foolish ace fighter with me, if I don't go straight for the primary target, I would really be dumb. Spreading my wings, I glide through the sky. With a 20 points in my strength, it allows me to bear the weight of the female knight with my right hands. Boom. I accidentally knocked into the wind cell of the number 6 ship. I am fine, but a giant hole of a female elf appears on the wind sail. I casually split apart the mast and watch as the ship descends into chaos. Then, I flew upwards once again. Lowens didn't let this opportunity slip by. Making use of their temporary stall in movement, he accurately fires into the gunpowder vault, causing number 6 to ignite into flames. The situation in the air has turned into a 1v2. The side which is in a disadvantage in terms of numbers had a legend druid and an ace sharpshooter in their ranks, so I'm not worried. Ayo, I'm very sorry. I didn't see it. You must have did it intentionally. No, that one before is really an accident. This one, however, is intentional. Ah. Looking at my relaxed right hand and the screaming Diana below me, I smile gleefully. Looks like my aiming is on the mark this time. Boom. The platform of the pitiful number 5 is broken through. The bones of the skeleton mage I had my eyes was crushed into shattered bones. On the other hand, Diana falls straight to the second floor. I'll give you 2 minutes. Clear away all hide your undeads here. But, what was bizarre is that I didn't hear the sounds of slaughter that I expected to hear. Instead, after the rumbling of footsteps, Diana appears on the platform once again. Lord, bring me away quickly. This ship is about to explode. Alright, I still hold great trust her words. I will speak my suspicions afterwards on the way. As expected, a short moment later, before we managed to get too far away, I heard the sound of explosion from my back. Boom. The explosion this time is even louder than the previous. It seems that the gunpowder vault has mixed with some other object and explodes concurrently with it. What happened? You fell on the gunpowder vault? Why am I so unfortunate recently? Diana mutters, regaining her senses only after she hears my words. On the second floor, I crushed another undead knight. Looking from its hat, it should be the captain of the ship. However, I continue to fall all the way to the third floor, into the power room, onto the main engine. The engine is spoiled. For the entire ship to explode just after its engine spoils, looks like the stability of the airships are quite terrible. That's not it. Diana says with a tearful face, a red blush of embarrassment appearing on her face. Just when I was about to get up, I accidentally pressed a button. It is a red button with a skeleton head on top of it. Alright, as we both came from Luhuang Mountain City, it is sufficient to stop the story there. Everyone knows of the bad habit of the gnome's engineers to leaving behind a button with a red skeleton head on it. To crush 2 high-tier undeads while falling through and press the self-destruct button when you are about to get up. This luck. Choosing you to be my bodyguard was an excellent choice. Such a great misfortune directing rod. No wonder I felt that my luck recently has been not bad. Looks like you have taken in all of my bad luck. I nod my head satisfactorily. On the other hand, a look of incomprehension and helplessness appears on Diana's face after hearing my words. However, it isn't the time to be sentimental or explain what happened. Looking at the top of the highest tower, under the protection of a group of Death Knights, Carlohan is currently casting Burst Inferno and his target seems to be us, who is already a potential threat to him. Darn Darsos! You traitors, I, Carlohan, should have been the next emperor of Allland. Alright, this Lich seems to think that we are Darsos's men. However, there is no need to do explanations. Then, your highness, allow me to send you on your way. Suddenly, the voice of the Queen of Banshees sounds by my ear. To think that it would be someone that we know. Look at the ring on his finger. When I carefully examine him, I realize that there is a mark of the Celestial Tower on the Lich's right hand. In that instant, rage fills me. Darn Celestial Tower, to think that their people would even be here. I'm not talking about that. Look at the insignia of a magic book on the ring on the pinky of his left hand. He should be one of my disciple in name, your junior. Even if he is my junior, does it make a difference? No, I'm just warning you to pay heed. None of my disciples, even if just in name, are easy to deal with. Every one of them would at least have a few underhanded tricks. Don't treat him just like any other normal Lich. Chapter 107, Semi-God Equipment and Gamble. Carlohan. The blood-related uncle of the current Emperor Darsos. As well as the blood-related younger brother from the same mother of the previous emperor, Crow. He was deeply trusted by the previous emperor. As a mage, not only is he the head of the court mages, he is also one of the top 3 military commanders of Allland. In his later years, the old emperor entrusted him with the important weapon of the country, the air fleet, to him. But, the truth is that Carlohan has never thought that he is inferior to his elder brother. The reason why he helped Crow in the vie for the royal throne is because they both came from the same mother. If he doesn't assist the elder brother he is closest with, he could only wait to be ridden of after some other prince sits on the throne. In reality, as the top genius of the royal family, his dream to become the emperor has never been quenched. In fact, in order to gain power, the young Ham even hid his name and went to the fearsome Ziluo Empire to study necromancy. He became the apprentice of the third senator, the Queen of Banshees Harl Ois, and researched specifically in death magic under her. Yes, on the surface, he might be a legend rank fire mage. But, at the same time, he is also a saint rank necromancer. Necromancers aren't viewed as an evil job for no apparent reason. Other than interrupting the slumber of the dead, this class of vile magic can sacrifice the living and ingest their blood, flesh and soul to become stronger. As their strength soars rapidly, these powers would accumulate in their body and obstruct their body and soul. Bearing powers beyond what their body can hold, they would be corrupted by the powers that they are unable to control, causing changes to occur in them in all aspects. For example, necromancers are known to not treat humans as humans. They would gradually grow more and more indifferent to life and death. Demon mages and soul reapers would gradually become less and less humane, such that it would become normal for them to salivate upon seeing other people's soul. When the blood mages finally become bloodthirsty, they would become even more vampiric than vampires. They would view humans as livestock. Those evil priests who gained powers from the malevolent gods would gradually become more and more fanatic. They would lose their sense of self and become the puppets of the malevolent gods. Of course, you can also progress a step at a time and digest these powers slowly, turning this unorthodox power into the demon sword in your hands rather than being consumed by this demon sword. But, for some people, if they were to do it slowly, it would go against their motive of learning evil magic. They are willing to accept the side effects these powers would have on their mentality. The most alluring quality of these unorthodox magic is that it is very easy for them to become immortals, although they would tend to have to pay a price for their immortality. For example, necromancers, as long as they don't meet with accidents, even if they are not of sufficient standard to become liches, it is of no difficulty for them to become a skeleton mage. To the humans who fear the unknown and death, sometimes the tempt of immortality is hard to resist, especially to the ambitious who seek to climb to the pinnacle. Of course, those who train to the pinnacle via orthodox means are also able to become immortal. For example, the heroic spirits, god envoy, and god beasts. However, they have to pay a price for it as well. Although they may seem to be of a much higher level, they are in fact just the servants and warriors for the gods. Achieving immortality, Carlohan's ambitions had always been wild. However, despite the fact that the individual strength of his elder brother is negligible, Crow possesses great talent in politics and military affairs. Under his rule, The All-End Empire was prospering day after day. Heroes are built during chaotic times. If the country is stable, no ground would be left for troublemakers. Naturally, those ambitious would have to hide their intentions and feign as a loyal and capable subordinate. Thus, even though Carlohan is obviously a saint necromancer, he put on a facade as a legend rank. During his career in the military, he even groomed a large bunch of subordinates who are loyal to him, controlling nearly 30% of the entire White Wolf Guards. He was waiting for a gap to occur in Kuro's rule. He has long noticed that his nephew, Darsos, had wild ambitions, but he helped to cover it. After all, as long as Darsos were to strike, he might be able to use his rebellion as an impetus for him to grab the crown. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, perhaps it is due to Carlohan being too outstanding in feigning as a loyal subordinate, or perhaps Crow had detected the ambitions of his younger brother and was afraid that a problem may occur during the inheritance of the throne. He made Carlohan accept the position of the commander-in-chief of the underwater base. Naturally, after realizing that it is the biggest trump card of the All-End Empire, how could Carlohan reject his offer? Thus, when Darsos made a move, this ambitious uncle of his was instead trapped in the base, missing the ideal opportunity for him to strike. Alright, let's stop talking about how this ambitious unlucky fellow was sent out of the game for such a ludicrous reason. What we have to face now is the rage of a person who had prepared for decades for his wild ambitions. Die. As he raises his staff, pitch black power of death warps into an eerie ghastly finger and rushes towards me. Instant casting Finger of Death? Impossible. Finger of Death is a 8-circle magic which only legend-ranked necromancers are able to wield. In order to instant cast it, its difficulty is heightened by at least 2 circles. That isn't something a saint-ranked necromancer would be able to do. For my thoughts to be wandering even at death's door, am I seeking death? Actually, if this Finger of Death is directed towards Diana, even the legend-rank female knight with magic immunity skin would have to tremble. But if it is directed towards me, perfect courage, immunity to all fear-related magic, death-related magic, race talents and abilities, the wielder will always be in a state of high morale. This effect can be shared with 3 party members. The completed version of Pale Justice lives up to its name as the Order faction's Sacred Sword of the Holy Light. Holy Knights are natural undead killers, and their abilities are almost specially tailored against every aspect of the undeads. Regardless of whether it is deadly higher circle necromancy magic or fear-inducing curses, the sword is completely immune to these all, leaving no gaps for the necromancers to break through. As I expected, in the instant when the Finger of Death strikes me, the golden holy light shrouding the sacred sword radiates brightly and the dark mist of death starts to scatter. However, even though the death effect has been dispelled, the shockwave from the power of death still isn't something a bronze rank rookie could withstand. The ice armor immediately shatters and breaks apart while the impact from the blow sent me flying. Cold sweat trickles down my back. If it wasn't for the ice armor I had equipped, with my current fragile physical body, I might have just died there and then. Death and decay. Alright, this time, it isn't an instant cast. However, for a 9-circle saint rank magic to be flung out like that as though it was nothing, this is really too unbelievable. What kind of saint rank mage is this? He is just like a myth rank mage already. Go. It was due to my timely sharing of the aura of perfect courage that prevented the breath of death from evaporating the surrounding moisture and absorbing the life force in the area, which would have resulted in an instant death. Even so, Diana was still sent flying with a mouthful of blood. This time, the outstanding defense of her full body armor saved her. The Lich's choice of spells are well thought through. With both the physical damage from the burning steam in the surrounding and the affliction of death, Diana's magic immunity skin isn't able to work its prowess. The Dark God's Breath of Death. That is a semi-god equipment, the ultimate treasure of necromancers. The black cat on my shoulders shouts in astonishment. It is because of this personal weapon of an ancient semi-god undead emperor that Carlohan is able to throw all of those high-circle instant death spells frenziedly without compromising their effectiveness. I unfurl my wings to soar into the sky to avoid the enemy's magic from locking on. Gazing towards our fighting ground, I can't help but feel that the situation isn't in our favor. Carlohan's guards have already rushed here. The savage javelin of those death knights are still difficult to deal with. If we do not end the battle fast, not mentioning how our plan to behead the commander would fail, Diana, and I might even fall here. Looking at how Diana is struggling to stand up, I could tell that the 9-circle magic which had been augmented by the semi-god equipment definitely dealt serious damage to her. Darn it, the semi-god weapon is too ridiculous. How can one possibly cast high-circle magic spells with such rapid speed? Is there really no way to subdue him? Think, there is no perfect human in this world. Hurry up and think. Breath of Death? This name sounds like an effect which strengthens the effects of instant killing magic. Even with the perfect courage ability from the sacred sword, the shockwave from the power of death is still fatal. These days, other than the dead, who doesn't fear the power of death? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have revived. Wait, the dead? Immediately, an idea pops into my list of options. Thus, I start to laugh. You have an idea? Of course, that is tradition. After realizing that he is unable to lock onto me, who is moving rapidly, Carlohan's gaze turns towards Diana. The next moment, I swipe downwards towards him. Foolish living beings. Accept the misfortune fate has in plan for you. As I expected, a black color vector comes shooting towards me. That is a 6-circle necromancy magic physical frailty. The fact that 2 high-circle death magic is unable to kill me made him suspect that we might have some treasures on us that allow us to be immune to the affliction of death. Thus, he chose to cast this spell. Physical frailty inherits the vileness of the necromancy magic. It will make the target feel as though he had carried 200 kilograms of rice sacks to run 2 marathons. It is exceptionally effective against warriors who depend heavily on their physical body and is reputed as the melee killer. If a physically weak person were to be struck by the spell, it isn't impossible for them to die from excessive loss of stamina. The vector comes at me at high speed. I had no time to change my path of movements and was about to come crashing head-on with this black vector. In that instant, Diana grinds her teeth and leaps with her hands stretching forward, attempting to try her luck with her magic immunity skin while I move away. I push away the foolish lass without any hesitation and collide straight into the vector. Ah! Shrouded in pitch black light, I couldn't help but shout in agony. The next moment, I crash violently onto the floor and roll around in pain. Even the gold wings on my back starts to disintegrate. As expected of the foolish living beings. To still be playing the laughable game of friendship at a time like this. What? Sin-splitting strike. The location where I fell was less than 5 meters away from the Lich. After which, I pretended to roll to close in the distance on him by another 2 meters. Then, I leapt upwards and covered the final 3 meters in an instant. The sacred sword Pale Justice comes striking down on his head along with a lethal holy light. It is impossible for him to dodge the attack. Clang! Even though the Lich has been forced into a kneeling position through brute strength, the sacred sword was still stopped by the pitch-black short staff. Can the basic property of the semi-god equipment of being tough be used like that as well? The green soul fire burning in the Lich's eye socket starts to blaze. Judging from how his lower jaw is opening and closing at a rapid pace, it seems that he has started to chant another spell. Descent of the Hell's Black Core. The darned cat's rich knowledge of magic spells allows her to instantaneously identify that this is a 10-circle myth-rank forbidden spell, a large AO destructive spell combining both necromancy and fire magic together. As long as he completes this magic, this entire platform would turn into the volcanic vent to Hell's Hellfire. There is no way we would be able to survive, and the same goes for him as well. For a life form like a Lich, as long as his phylactery remains undestroyed, he is able to revive again and again. Apparently, forced to this point, Carlohan no longer has the confidence to get away unscathed. He intends to die together with us, then revive himself. Actually, the reason why Liches are that abhorred by adventurers is that not only are they difficult to deal with, they also have the bad habit of committing a double suicide whenever something comes up. As the sword and the staff cross his blows, I found myself in an extreme close proximity with him. I could see the malicious intent on the skull head, and there is even a trace of gleefulness on it. However, to dare to chant your incantation after I had gotten close, aren't you looking down on me for a little too much? You want it? Catch it. Thus, without hesitation, I let go of the weapon which we were pitting our strength through, and in front of the Lich's eyes of incomprehension, I stretch out my hands. Look at my flying dragon cloud exploring hands. Kaka. A crisp sound echoes and the incantation stops. That is because I have removed the lower jaw of the Lich. Aha! Let me help you wash your bones and maintain it for you. Dragon exploring hands. Dragon exploring hands. My both hands assault him simultaneously and continuously. In an instant, a bone from his hand and rib cage has been removed. Soon, even his spinal cord was pulled out, and with a powerful stomp on the ground, his entire skeletal rack falls apart. As an experienced Lich, through the last century, I can't even remember how many times I have taken out my own bones to maintain it. Just like how an experienced veteran could disassemble his gun with his eyes closed, I could take apart a skeleton into bones and put it back together with my eyes closed. In a few short seconds, all that remains of Lich Carlohan is a skeletal head without its lower jaw. I stab the sacred sword into the soul fire of his skeletal head without second thoughts. The bizarre ripple of his soul disperses and we could vaguely hear the scream of agony from the depths of his soul. Alright. He would take at least a few days to revive after his soul fire was incinerated by the sacred inferno. What we have to do next is to find his phylactery before he revives. After Carlohan falls, the shortcoming of an undead army being over-reliant on an undead lord shows itself once again. The large group of low-tier undead whom he was controlling with his necromancy magic immediately falls to the ground. A few intelligent undeads shouts, "All enders don't hit all enders, we were all forced into it, actually we are all good citizens, actually, I am your father." Of course, the one who shouted the last phrase got lynched. Reorganize them and question them where Carlohan's phylactery is? Forget it, they can't possibly know it. How about we search Carlohan's room? Now is my favorite moment of a battle, collecting spoils of war. Cough, punishing evil. Just as I picked up the dark god's breath of death smiling, Diana suddenly leaps over. "Are you fine? Why did that evil magic have no effect on you?" HMPH. What do you mean by no effect? I paid a heavy price for it. Look. I open my clothes. In there, a black cat with half of its body exposed outside is brawling with my resilient throat. She bites, gnaws and claws, using both her fangs and claws simultaneously, but she is still unable to scratch at a wound. However, when I looked at her, she spits towards me without any hesitation. Look, cat shield. Dodging that feeble and unthreatening attack, I pull her off me and shake her about. Holding her in my hands, I made a stance of defense, as though she is a shield. How can a kitten block such vile magic? Towards Diana's suspicion, I smile mysteriously without replying her question. You can't expect me to tell her that although this darned cat seems very cute, she is in fact an evil undead creature? Alright. Actually there is no need for the inverted commas for evil. If the Queen of Banshees Harlois cannot be considered as evil, then everyone else in this world could be considered as saints. Yes, when I said tradition previously, I meant our line's tradition of pulling our mentors down. Back then, I thought that Harlois would be a good meat shield against the necromancy spells. Currently, Harlois is an undead slime. Although she has a portion of the composition of a living being within her, she is still an undead creation of mine. Using death magic against undeads is just like throwing a fireball towards fire elementals. Other than making the other party even stronger, it has no effects whatsoever. Thus, after the cat shield has blocked that physical frailty vector which is made of death magic, I am actually unaffected by its effects at all. All that came afterwards is just a performance to get closer to him to conduct a sneak attack. In a way, this is also taking advantage of the other party's inexperience. I deduced that being in an esteemed position, Carlohan must have often cast magic safely under the protection of many bodyguards, so how would he have thought of being assaulted like that? The result is just as I have anticipated. Woo you unfilial disciples only know how to bully me. If only I knew that all of you had malicious intentions in mind. I was blind to accept you all as my disciples. Teacher, I finally know how you felt when I stabbed you back then. Now, I also have a knife stabbed in me, not to mention that it is by two of my disciples in both the front and the back. I will never have disciples again. Woo you. Alright. The only victim is the traumatized Harlois in her saddened heart as an educator. Stop faking it. If you had good relationship with Carlohan, why didn't you say it back then? Which of your disciples have you never taken advantage of? Probably, if the other party knew that it was you, he would have went even further. Besides, Have you forgotten the existence of the magic pet contract? Your true emotions cannot be concealed from me. You expect me to believe that such a minor thing would cause you to be in such a state of agony? Alright, she got exposed. The next moment, the darn cat immediately stops her tears, shocking Diana, but displeasure could still be seen on her face. Let me eat the semi-god staff. I want to become stronger. I have had enough of the days of serving as a pet. Fine, then show me a cute gesture. If I am satisfied with it, I will give the staff to you. The little kitten smiles mysteriously. Meow, master. Give me the thick one, the black short stick, okay? Lois really wants to eat the stick. I begging you. Meow. Pooh. Alright, looks like I still underestimated the lower decency boundary of the darned cat. Initially, I only wanted to tease her, make her do some backflips and bark like a dog. After her words came out, not mentioning how I burst into laughter, Diana starts to look at me with a bizarre expression. This silly lass believes the words of others too easily. She is probably thinking of me as a gentleman, pervert, once again. However, I had intended to pass this semi-god equipment on to her from the start anyway. After all, bringing this semi-god equipment around in the mortal world is simply looking for trouble. Also, after Harlois consumes it, it would be more convenient for me to use it as well. Can you stop overthinking it? Even if I'm that desperate, I won't go to the extent of venting my frustrations on a cat. Right after I explain myself to Diana, an evil smile flashes across Harlois's face. After a distortion in space, she turns into a cute golden-haired elf girl. Although she turns back within a single second, it is sufficient to mark the sight into the brain of the legend knight. Without doubt, this is the vengeance of the cat shield. No wonder it's called Gentleman Alliance. So you are a great gentleman, pervert, yourself, to actually make your own cat turn into a little girl. How much? Alright. She doesn't even use respectful language anymore. Looks like my reputation has gone down the drain this time. Actually, it is understandable for man to be slightly gentleman. Actually, if you really can't bear it any longer, you can consider Momo. Although she goes a bit far with her words, she is really a good girl. She has liked you for a long period of time. Forget it. She definitely can't make it. Anyone but her. Diana's untimely matchmaker reminds me of what happened a few days ago. We were conducting a selection for Aurora Knights, and as a silver rank, Momo comes running over to join in the commotion. Originally, as she is considerably powerful, she had a chance to succeed with the Frigid Nightmares. That is until she opened her mouth. Is there anyone who can turn into a cute Shota? Hee, that's right, an 8 to 9 years old little boy. Hee, right. I have little Rolo's picture here. Can you transform into him? Big Sister Seva, please help me just this once. On the account of how I helped you deflect an arrow just now, just for a moment. Just for a split moment. I really wanted to see little Rolo, but I am unable to defeat that pervert. Woo you. Momo's life is so tough. Looking at the Momo who is pestering Seva on the airship, Diana sighs helplessly. It is due to her becoming weirder and weirder that I want her to marry out quickly. Passing the disaster on to others just because you can't deal with it? Diana, you have also been corrupted. However, I have to thank you for your warning for yesterday's night assault. Otherwise, the outcome would have been unimaginable. Sigh, actually this is also partially your fault. In the past, she was obviously quite normal. How can you blame me for this? She is obviously the one. Alright, let's just blame it all on me. At this moment, I can't help but recall the King of Gentlemen title, what all gentlemen would proactively join my group. Throughout this journey, I have still yet to meet more than a handful of normal people. Ding, congratulations for noticing the hidden effect of the King of Gentlemen. Not only will the title make gentlemen proactively join your faction, it will also turn ordinary people into gentlemen. Little gentlemen will turn into great gentlemen will turn into god gentlemen, and god gentlemen will turn into king of gentlemen. System notice: did you notice how I gave you the greatest honor amongst the gentlemen from the start? Aren't I caring? Carrying your head. Do you think that we are lacking gentlemen among our midst? While we were celebrating our victory in the underwater base and getting a headache over the grey elf who is getting weirder and weirder, in the Island Empire, the Emperor is meeting with an esteemed guest. Ha, with your help, What would that smelly nine-headed snake count as? Inform the envoys of the other countries. The enthronement ceremony will be brought ahead and it will be held along with the Lord Dragonslayer's great undertaking. We will be written in the annals of history together. Your Highness has spoken too highly of me. I am only an insufficiently powerful old man who has yet to die. I could probably drive away the nine-headed dragon emperor, but killing it is probably impossible. My master also told me not to go overboard. Despite looking like a handsome youth, he had the tone of an elderly. Judging from the golden glow radiating beneath his white skin and the halo behind his head, he isn't a mortal but a heroic spirit of a true god. After a bunch of formalities, when Darsos finally sends off the heroic spirit, the arrogance and frenzy he displayed previously turns into calmness. Dragonslayer Bastler. When the enemy he is facing is a dragon, will he show mercy, even to the extent of not going overboard? That is an insane idea. Sending down this bloodthirsty heroic spirit, does the goddess of moon intend to clash with the queen of storms? Darn it. Get our army to make preparations. It is possible that the situation might get out of control. Yet, you are still making use of this opportunity to hold the enthronement ceremony? It is not like you don't know how many envoys are returning back to their homeland every day. If Alan wants to become a superpower, then this alliance must be conducted successfully. It is hard for us to step down at this point. Since the situation can't get any worse, why don't we just throw in all our stakes and gamble a big one? Peace, instant casting finger of death? Impossible. TL, Dota reference just clarifying, the spells his cast normally carries power of death, which I think probably works just like poison, afflicting someone with death status, something like that. So, if it isn't dispelled, the magic will just assume like something like poison. If it hits, he will be poison / whatever effects. But, when it is dispelled, the magic power probably bursts, resulting in a shockwave. Based on my interpretation, death and decay. TL, wow. 3 Descent of the Hell's Black Core. TL, I can't find a decent translation for it. I can't be sure, but I think the reference is to Bastard, a Japanese manga and anime. There's one spell by its protagonist Dark Schneider whose name is really similar to the name of this spell, and if I'm not wrong about the English translation, it's called Halloween. No wonder it's called Gentleman Alliance. So you are a great gentleman, pervert, yourself, to actually make your own cat turn into a little girl. How much? Alright, she doesn't even use respectful language anymore. Looks like my reputation has gone down the drain this time. TL, if you recall, she always uses Lord and, rarely, a more respectful Chinese word for you. This time, she just addresses him casually as though like a peer. Chapter 108, The Secret of the Lich. The over-reliance of the undead calamity on its mastermind dealt it a solid wound. Following the fall of the Lich, Carlohan's undead army falls apart. In our eyes as ex-undead lords, this shows that the army structure is extremely chaotic. The more mature an undead army is, the more middle tier and high tier undead they would have. With more middle level commanders within the army, the low tier cannon fodders would be able to exert a greater impact on the battlefield through their leadership. They would also be even less fearful of getting killed. However, the reason why Emperor Yongai's Yongai army fell apart after his death back then was because he also walked the opposite extremity. His army had too much high tier and middle tier undead in their midst. After losing their common leader, Emperor Yongai, along with the formation of the country of undead and the temptation of the Eternal Night Scepter, an opportunity opens for the powerful to climb to the pinnacle, causing them to fall into internal strife. That being said, that junior lich of mine is really quite dumb. To actually chant right in front of a melee fighter, not to mention a spell with a long incantation. Is he that sick of living? Is this what you taught him? His battle experience is incredulously horrid. Looks like your standard as an educator is getting worse and worse. The darn cat on my shoulders became so mad from my words that her hairs stood on ends. If it wasn't for the fact that she is still feeling awful from trying to bite through my skin, she would definitely come assaulting me once again. I understand her quite well. Usually, she is about just as thick-skinned as me, indifferent to any words directed towards her. However, the moment when doubt is cast over the standard of her magic and her standard as an educator, she would be provoked in an instant. That isn't taught by me. Also, I don't teach such a basic thing. The fool is obviously the one who lacks battle experience. I am not some kindergarten teacher. Do I still have to teach these basics over and over again? Yes, basics. As a fragile mage job, the first law that they have to observe is to maintain a safe distance from close combatants. During a battle between a powerful mage and a close combatant, the close combatants would often be trying their best to close in distance on the mage, while the mage would be using their defensive spells to avoid them and further the gap between them through teleportation. This cycle will go on continuously until a gap appears in one's defense, and that would be the decisive moment. In the final conclusion, either the mage would gain sufficient distance and time to focus their firepower to blast away the close combatants, or that the close combatants would successfully grind away the defensive spells, escape spells and control spells of the other party and slice them apart. To say the truth, this isn't very fair. The spellcasters could err over and over again, whereas it could be fatal the moment the close combatants commit a mistake. Under most circumstances, close combatants would find themselves unable to catch up with the mages and end up being played to death. However, there is no such as absolute equality in this world. Mage jobs have a high requirement for innate talent, and they number less than a tenth of the other jobs. Furthermore, they require a large amount of time and fortune to groom. Thus, it is often easier for mages to earn a position of respect in the human society compared to close combatants. Without doubt, as the head of court mages and a king of the royal family, Carlohan possesses true authority. However, being in an esteemed position, he would be lacking in opportunities to accumulate battle experience. Venturing out, he would always bring along a large group of bodyguards. So, how could it be possible for him to stand on the front lines and be forced into a life and death situation? Should I say that he inexperienced to the point of naivety? This junior of mine actually dares to chant right in front of a close combatant. Even though my power rank is much lower than his, he shouldn't underestimate me that much. Assuming that I didn't dismantle him forcefully, if I were to send in a few more attacks from the Pale Justice, he would also be done for. I think that I should expel Carlohan from my apprenticeship. I have never taught such a shameful apprentice. Actually, you should be secretly joyful over it. If it wasn't for this fellow lacking in battle experience to such a ludicrous point, given his strength as a sane Lich along with his semi-god equipment, it is definitely impossible for you to defeat him. What Harlois said is true. Actually, this couldn't be blamed on the teacher for not guiding him well. Apparently, he would usually make full use of his strength as a saint rank and his semi-god equipment to blast everything with high circle spells. Meeting someone who is immune to his spells, he immediately panics. If Carlohan wasn't that foolish, given his strength as a legend rank fire mage and a saint rank necromancer, not to mention the possession of a semi-god equipment, he could have dealt with us patiently. There would at least be a dozen methods for him to claim victory and he wouldn't have ended up decapitated. This sufficiently verifies an old adage. No matter how powerful a person's martial arts is, if their brain is unable to function well, they would end being put in place by a concrete brick. I nod my head solemnly, even though a smile had creeped onto my face. Hey, this junior of mine is almost like a captain of a treasure delivery convoy. The equipment on his body is not bad at all. Then, I will be taking this semi-god equipment with joy. The Dark God's Breath of Death, Attack Power, 1 to 2 tier, Semi-God, Single-Handed Staff. Prerequisite, Intelligence 15 plus, High-Ranked Necromancer, Breath of Death, allows one to store 3 death spells, that is of maximum 8 circles. Legend rank, allowing the user to instant cast it the moment it is activated. For a 9-circle spell, myth rank, the user is able to cast it without incantation and only one 9-circle spell can be stored. Domain of Death, with this staff as the center, an intangible domain of death exists. In this domain, the effects of death magic is increased by 50% and the probability of affliction of death being inflicted is increased by 30%. The Countenance of the Dead, the wielder's intelligence will be increased by 2, stamina by 2, and he will be immune to all fear-related and death-related effects. However, his charm will be reduced by 10. This stat can be reduced to the point of negativity. The Protection of the Dark God, summon a formless protective barrier which can withstand 200 magic damage, magic equipment damage. Before the protective barrier breaks, the wielder will be immune to all stunning, hexing and any other control type magic. Duration, 10 seconds, the Rage of the Dark God, an active ability. After it is activated, the next magic spell will be enchanted with the Affliction of Death effect, even if it is just a normal magic bullet. The Affliction of Death effect would be equivalent to the power rank of the spell, Soul Conversion. Siphon the soul of a dead and convert it into pure power of death. The ancient undead Emperor Dark God has once reached the pinnacle in the field of death. It is said that just by breathing, he is able to plunge the living into the world of the dead. Even if he has already fallen, the semi-god equipment still contains a fragment of his soul. Perhaps, an undead lord would be able to comprehend the profoundness of death through this equipment and ascend to the highest throne of as a semi-god undead emperor. This is a classical semi-god equipment catered for battles. The Undead Emperor's soul fragment as well as the profound wisdom hidden within it that could send undead lords into a state of frenzy could actually be neglected. After all, it is much more dependent on luck than anything else. It is not something that could be attained forcefully. Rather, the 3 instant cast death spells of the Breath of Death ability already makes it an astonishingly powerful killing tool. Just with this Breath of Death itself, it doesn't need any other abilities. Throwing out 3 death spells in an instant, who would be able to withstand it? Also, with the Soul Conversion ability, the wielder's mana would never run dry. No wonder Carlohan's battle experience would be that lacking. With this semi-god equipment, he is probably used to instant killing everything. Even if he is obstructed temporarily, he just has to siphon a few souls and continue blasting spells over. Although they say that I am a canon mage, this junior of mine is obviously the true outstanding canon mage. Looking at the protection of the Dark God, it seems that I have underestimated the other party. When he chanted the spell to commit a double suicide with us, he seems to have been putting his faith on this protective barrier. To get through that 200 damage barrier, I would have at least taken me 7 to 8 strikes. I wouldn't have the time to do anything else even if I managed to break the barrier. However, he didn't expect that I would be unlike his previous opponents, that I wouldn't utilize my powerful weapons while challenging the powerful Lich and instead choose to pull out his bones barehanded. After pulling out his lower jaw with 1 strike, he was unable to even chant any spells normally and naturally. The odds fell in our favors. If this toy were to be exposed outside, the Church of Holy Light would probably launch a crusade against me instantly. I intended for Harlois to consume it, but the current her should still be unable to ingest a semi-god equipment. Preparations still have to be made, and thus, I kept the semi-god equipment joyfully. Just when my evaluation of Carlohan went up after catching sight of that defensive ability which didn't activate as anticipated, 5 minutes later, my overly high evaluation of him crumbles once again. I really didn't teach this. I don't know him. I believe you. Such a brainless student indeed cannot be justified by the improper guidance of a mentor. He is probably born with a defect in his brain that cannot be cured with any medicine. His intelligence is probably on par with that silly lass. How did he ascend to saint rank? The moment we walked into Carlohan's room in the Mage Tower, we began to collect spoils of Air. However, the moment we started searching around his room, we found a square box under his bed. Opening it, we saw a blue bottle wrapped in velvet. Inside the bottle, a soul fire burns quietly. If there isn't a second Lich here, this toy is surely the Carlohan's phylactery. This is an ideal textbook example. A model soul bottle, placed in a box in fear that he might lose it. To interpret the word phylactery literally to such a level, he could be considered as eccentric as well. Phylactery literally means soul box in Chinese, and his soul is literally placed in a bottle in a box. While other liches are trying their hardest to disguise their phylacteries over and over again, fearful of someone finding this weakness of theirs, this phylactery which sits upright there without a hint of disguise left us stupefied. Hey, Harlois, if you were to be converted into a Lich here, how would you create your phylactery? I would find some debris and throw it into the water after successfully converting it. I can guarantee that no one would be able to find it. You? I would put it into an ordinary looking concrete block and use it in the main passageway. Passers-by would cross it every day, but they would never imagine that there would be a phylactery under their feet. The two of them stare at each other, a hint of a smile appearing in both their eyes. Alas, our heritage was unfortunate. Back then, I should have included an intelligence test in the entrance exams. Don't tell others that I am his senior. I can't afford to gain such a title. The size of the two harmonizes as one. Finally, someone can no longer withstand all the sarcastic remarks directed in his face. Darso's dogs, do you think that you could insult me casually just because I have lost? No matter what, I am a king of all and my senior. Do you know who my master is? You think that you don't shake the bottle. I am feeling really giddy now. Stop shaking it. One of the reasons why the textbook example of soul bottles has died out is because that souls contained in a bottle is really too fragile. Just by slightly shaking it, Carlohan immediately surrenders without second thoughts. This sensation feels so familiar. It is made from your skin, darn cat. Alright, ignoring the darned cat who stops what she was doing to bite me with all her might, I turn my attention towards the phylactery which fell into silence. Alright. Allow me to reintroduce ourselves to explain why I am your senior. I should the oldest senior who managed to survive until this point. I am Roland. Mist and this darned cat is our master, Harl Ois. How could this be possible? Carlohan is unable to retain his silence. Not mentioning how his heritage is exposed in a few words, how could that fearsome queen of banshees be reduced to a soft and furry little cat? However, that black cat glares at him in displeasure. An apparition-like figure flashes behind her for an instant. That familiar ripple of her soul is the best name card. How have you been doing? By the way, don't claim to be my disciple in the future. It is really embarrassing for me. Right, Harlock, Carlohan's fake name. Seeing you in such a state, all of my anger has been dispelled. Let's just strike off the grudges we had in the past. Of course, you can also reject it and we can recalculate the debt between us. The soul fire in the bottle ripples. If the bottle could nod its head freely, it would have most probably have turned into a roly-poly toy. Teacher Harl Ois, you said it as though I wronged you. You were obviously the one who made use of all of us. We should be the one seeking you for revenge, not. Alright, I will stop talking. Noticing the black cat baring her teeth, he recalls her narrow-minded and vengeful nature and that he is now in the other party's hands. Carlohan immediately gives in. Wait, the oldest senior? That legendary person is also one of Harlois's disciple and it is said that he is from Mist Country. Yang Emperor Yang. Alright, the agitation of his soul ripples throughout the room, revealing his shock and fear. As the only undead emperor and the founder of the strongest undead calamity in recent times, Yong-ai Calamity, Emperor Yong-ai is an existence well known to all necromancers. He is an obelisk which can't be surpassed as well as an existence which strikes fear in them. That's me. You don't have to be that shocked. You are also an immortal existence yourself now. Are you that shocked that I didn't die? I planned to reveal my own identity from the very start. The world of the undead is much simpler than the world of the living. There is only one law in the world of the undead. The powerful reigns supreme. With the golden name of Emperor Yong-ai suppressing him down, the reality of his failure just a while ago and his phylactery in my hands, I don't think that he is able to play any tricks. I won't be saying anything excessive. From now on, you will listen to me. We are all from the same trade and are well versed in means to torture souls. If you wish to play any tricks, go ahead. However, if your schemes are subpar to the point that I can't stand looking at them any further, I don't think much have to be said about your outcome. Don't think much have to be said equals think for it yourself equals scaring yourself. There is no bottom limit to the imagination of intelligent life forms. The more used one is to being cruel to others, the more easily they are able to think of cruel tortures that could be done to themselves. This kind of method of inducing fear in others has worked 100 out of 100 times, especially against necromancers who are adept in torturing the souls of others. If Carlohan is really some warrior who refuses to yield even upon death, he wouldn't have converted himself into a lich in the first place. Seeing how even the almighty Harlois was turned into a pet, he lost all of his will to resist. Thus, what happens afterwards is me giving the commands and him carrying out the commands. I will stop here. Anyway, you already have a grudge against Darsos, so when he opens the door, you can lead your army to battle against him. Of course, it will end with your loss, but do remember to end it with a splendid self-explosion. Of course, the information on the fleet must be left behind as well. Don't destroy it along with the explosion. I don't think that we would be able to conceal everything from Darsos after we start to develop our own air fleet. However, it is entirely possible to create a little bit of chaos. The traces of the existence of undead cannot be concealed, not to mention the scars of the battle which was just fought. The easiest way to conceal the scars of a fight is to cover up with new ones. Of course, there are no eternal secrets. There are some matters that would surely leave behind traces if done, and a day will come when everything is exposed. To the East Mist, which lacks everything, the rare alloy equipment of the White Wolf Guards is already a priceless treasure. There is no way we could give up on the spoils of war we collected here. The thing we have to do now is to do a series of preparations so that our existence here won't be exposed that quickly. Hey, after all Land is done dealing with the sea folk, it would be about time for the onset of the Vultures of Vaira, the great war of the human kingdoms. When the war finally ends, it should be about time for the onset of the Underground Alliance and the Undead Calamity onto the stage. As long as we are able to tide through our current crisis, I do not believe that he would still have the leisure to find trouble with the northern countries. Furthermore, the East Mist would have grown stronger by then. It would be hard to tell who would be the one finding trouble with the other. Right, the 7 countries in the northern lands aren't that unambitious as well. Since we have decided to stake it all on East Mist, we should also make preparations for war. No matter what, this is the territory of Lich Carlohan. The best way to clean up the base is to obtain the assistance of the other party. Currently, the most important thing to do is make him submit to us obediently. In order to make him work for us without worries, it is imperative for us to offer him some benefits after slapping him in the face. I am not an unreasonable person. If you listen to me obediently, no matter what profound magic secrets or godly weapons and treasures it is, if there is something you want, feel free to bring it up. You should have heard of it before, that I am not a stingy person and I tend to be credible. Emperor Young Eye's promise is extremely valuable. Hearing my words, the soul fire in the bottle stuns suddenly before blazing frenziedly. Pardon my insolence, but what is with the current form of yours and Lord Mentor? Could it be that you all have been revived? This isn't something much to hide about. I nod my head directly. Then, have you all regained your senses? Do you all possess the desires of a physical body? I nod my head once again. Although Haralois is still half an undead, her functions on all aspects are no different from the living. Haralois's body is created by me. You should also be aware of my ability in that aspect. Why, do you wish for me to create a physical body for you as well? Of course. I have had enough of the days living as an undead. Although it is true that we aren't plagued by hunger and thirst, we are also devoid of the desire to enjoy luxurious food. While it is true that we are devoid of the instinctive desires of the physical body, living on like this is really a torture. Lord, I am begging you, as long as you are able to restore the senses and desires of the physical body in me, I am willing to pay any price. Alright, it is just a body of a male. It is but a simple task. However, I have to first emphasize that even though you would be similar to a normal person on most aspects, you are still an immortal undead internally, so you will be unable to leave behind descendants. I am able to restore senses and desires, but I am still incapable of transcending the boundaries of life and death at this point. Just restoring desires is enough. Just desires are enough. I smile gleefully. I am not afraid of you coming up with unreasonable requests, I only fear that you are devoid of pursuits. Since you have something to request of me, naturally, it makes it easier for me to control you. Fine, leave it to me. When it is time, pass me a painting of how you were previously. I can guarantee that I would be able to restore your original appearance. Are you able to make a female physical body? At that moment, I lost my footing and my hands loosened, almost dropping his phylactery onto the floor. Based on my many years of experiences of meeting with such incidents, I can already guess the damned developments that is about to happen. Liking cute little boys is a common little interest among nobles. I believe that Lord would be able to understand that as well. Although it was fine with my original body back then, if there is a chance, I would still like to change to a different style. As though intimidated by my livid face, the next moment, Carlohan yells out his desires though he is putting his everything on the line. No, I will honestly tell you, my lord, that this is the goal of my life. This is also the main reason why I pursued necromancy. Shut up, gay. I suppressed the urge to smash the bottle and ignored the darned cat who is busy rolling around in front of me in laughter. She seems to have knew it from the start. I have no desire whatsoever to interact with this kind of pervert. The next moment, I turn around to leave. Lord, please don't go. I am begging you. This is the deepest innate desire of a foolish man who was born in the wrong body. Way. I already have enough gentlemen by my side. This kind of gay pervert is challenging my tolerance and bottom line as a man. Thus, I refuse to stop for him. Lord, have you heard of chasms? Of course, I have heard of it. The future flagship of the all-land air fleet dash. The unsinkable chasms. That is a super warship that would be known by every single household in the future. HMPH, of course I have heard of it. However, if its construction is complete, is it possible for you not to take it out in this battle? That is a flagship of an air fleet after all. It isn't that easy to build it. Of course, its construction isn't completed yet. However, its prototype, the King Carlohan which I built privately, is almost completed. Lord, as long as you fulfill my wish, he would be yours. No matter how powerful a person's martial arts is, if their brain is unable to function well, they would end being put in place by a concrete brick. TL, i.e. even if they are extremely powerful, if they are not smart enough, they will still end up defeated by creative methods sooner or later by an enemy. TL, truthfully I had no idea how to translate this. Literally, it means instant death magic and it afflicts an instant death status, or brink of death status, depending on how you interpret the word. I tried googling it but couldn't really find any usage of it in any literature. So, I've translated it into death magic and called the status affliction of death. The terminologies I chose to use doesn't really affect the story or the meaning of it but just leaving a side note to inform you all. Chapter 109, Borealis. Unable to resist the temptation of the powerful warship, I eventually agreed to the request of the pervert. Even so, I drew a fine line between us in our head. After I'm done using him, I will tie him to a boulder weighing a ton and toss him into the river. No, I'll feed him to Beifing. Wait, what if his tendencies spawn a new attribute in Beifing? That would be really scary. It'll be safer to just sink him in the river. Those gentlemen are already a handful to deal with. I must make sure to prevent him from interacting with the rest. I am gravely disgusted. After all, I'm just an ordinary person. Yes, without a doubt, I'm an ordinary person. After all, it is impossible for me to be the king of gentlemen. Darned All-End Empire. They should rename themselves into the All-End Gay Empire instead. HMPH, one of them fell in love with a man who looks like a woman while the other one feels that he should have been born a female. I think that pair of uncle and nephew complements each other well. However, with Carlohan's full cooperation, we managed to attain our goal of taking full control over the secret base a lot more efficiently. Also, whenever I see the super warship docked in the underground space below the Mage Tower, I would pinch the tail of the darned cat and verify that I am not dreaming from her shrieks and flurry of claws. The King Carlohan, originally named as the Warrior of All-Land, is a prototype for the flagship chasms. In reality, however, the capabilities of the prototype exceed that of his brother ship. Just like how the Roland No. 2 is much stronger than its other kin, prototypes are built without a cap on the budget to prove the feasibility of their theories. It is not surprising for King Carlohan's capabilities to be above that of the chasms. King Carlohan, super heavyweight battleship, length 243 meters and width 40 meters. It is armed with 9 magic siege cannons, 7 medium-sized mage tower, 1 supreme mage tower and 32 medium-light technical cannons. The main cannon of the ship has a range of 30 kilometers. Also, the ship has a hangar, allowing it to hold 3 Eagle corvettes. The ship can be used in both air and at sea. Upon descending onto the water surface, it would displace 65,000 tons of water. Floating on the surface of the water, it would take around 10 minutes for it to start soaring into the sky. When it is in the sky, it can travel at a maximum speed on 120 kilometers per hour. As a flying unit, its speed isn't very fast. However, when its big size is taken into consideration, I think that its speed can already be considered ridiculously fast. It is originally designed as the flagship of the all-land air fleet. Due to a lack of upper limit on the budget, regardless of whether it is the size, speed or firepower, The numbers on this super warship exceeds that of Chasm's significantly. However, in the official record, it is stated that the ship's aft suddenly exploded in the midst of a certain experiment and sunk into the deep sea. Although both the sinking and the explosion are real, none of the crewmates on the ship lost their life. Their families are also well taken care of by Carlohan. A year and a half later after the incident, the King Carlohan activated once again and enters the underwater secret base, which was under Carlohan's complete control. At this point, the ship has become his trump card in the vie for the throne, waiting patiently and silently for the day it would be renamed as Emperor Carlohan. On top of that, in order to raise the success rate of an assault on the royal capital, when all 8 mage towers are fully activated, the ship can form a formidable barrier as well as to go into stealth mode. This ship is the ultimate crystallization of the All-End Empire's centuries of effort, but yet, due to a certain person's greed, it has become a tool for seizing the crown. From the moment when Carlohan realized that the underwater base is isolated from the outside world, he acutely sensed that the next time the door opens, he would fall out completely with his nephew. To prepare for the day, he devoted 90% of the manpower and resources onto this massive ship right after tests on the Eagle's engines were completed. With indefatigable builders, coolies and engineers, the construction of the King Carlohan is already 95% completed. On the other hand, the Chasms, which priority was given to, is only half completed. In history, when the gates finally opened 10 years later, Darsos found himself facing the strength of a completed fleet. If it isn't for the fact that their nation is in grave peril, forcing the uncle and nephew to come to a temporary ceasefire, as well as the fact that the noble title of the King of the Frost Wolves is already known throughout the continent, Darsos would probably found himself forced off the throne. But now, this super battleship that did not appear in any official records came easily into my hands. With Carlohan's assistance, we weren't impeded by the traps while heading to the bottom levels from a mage tower. Upon reaching the dock for King Carlohan, we found the ship surrounded by industrious undead workers and top-notch engineers. The weaker a person is, the lower the probability they would able to retain their intelligence after converting into an undead. In order to retain the knowledge and wisdom required for the construction of the ship, all of those top-notch engineers and scholars from various professions were still alive. Despite having the remaining food supplies distributed to them, given the fact that they have been isolated from the outer world for a long period of time as well as the hard labor they underwent with minimal food, they became so thin that they looked like skeleton soldiers. From another perspective, our assault on the base actually rescued the dying them. After being forcibly displaced into this location then witnessing their friends and loved ones being converted into undying beings, the engineers hold deep resentment against All-End Empire, Darsos and Carlohan. Upon hearing that I am from East Mist Communal Country, my recruitment of the personnel went unbelievably smooth. Of course, being able to survive until now proves that they're all smart people. They know what choices they have to make to continue living on. It'll be completed by next month and that it would be able to forcibly set sail in 2 weeks. After obtaining this information from the jovial engineers and scholars who were enjoying the dried meat I distributed to them, I am astonished. If I were to come a month later, we would most probably have no chance of winning the battle. Prioritize the completion of the mage towers. If required, use the spare parts from the mage towers in this base. What we need the most now is the stealth ability of the ship to conduct assaults. I gave out new orders on the construction of the ship delightfully. With this ship in my hands, I feel much more confident and hopeful about my future plans. King Carlohan. The moment that I recall that this is the name of a certain gay and that I might need to live in a ship named after a gay, I did not hesitate to put renaming the ship as my utmost priority. However, naming has never been my forte. Just as I was hesitating to shout out the Roland as a name for the ship, the words of the darned cat dispel my intention. Have you forgotten the Roland Titan robot? Do you intend to create a Transformer set or a whole series of Roland products? Then, I thought of naming it over the concept of law and justice, so I recommended the name Absolute Justice. However, the darned cat retorts, in short, cancer? And I was defeated once again. TL, Absolute Justice, Ju Diu I Jing Yi Hao, greater than cancer, Ju Xing, which is a homophone for cancer, love and courage. Little kid, how old are you this year? Are you trying to make people laugh their heads off? Angry Birds. The name makes it feel like the ship would crash into either a pig or a house. Think of something else. Angry Grape. TL, i.e. The Grapes of Wrath, written by John Steinbeck. This name feels like it'll bring us bad luck throughout the entire journey, as though we would meet with an economic crisis and go bankrupt. Angry Banana? TL, an author from Kaidian. How about Angry Squirrel? Give the name some serious thought. Stop considering the names of animals and fruits. Go for something mighty and domineering. TL, the author of this book Archangel. TL, Gundam Seed. Although Archangel does sound impressive, it sounds like an extremely inauspicious name which would bring down its teammates. Snowy Wind. TL, Japanese destroyer Yuki Kaze. No way. It sounds even more inauspicious. I can already feel a chill down my spine. Danyang. TL, it's the exact same ship as Yuki Kaze, just a different name after it came into China's possession. Is there even a difference from the one you just proposed? Can you stop coming up with such inauspicious names? Titanic. Will you only be content when the ship sinks? Do you hold some kind of deep-seated grudge against the ship? Can't you come up with an auspicious name? Gentlemen. Unite TL, Transformers. Sure, I have nothing to say about that. However, do your parents know about your suicidal tendencies? Do you find the number of gentlemen under your command lacking? Soaring Dragon. I know at least 20 ships with this name. Are you sure you want to add a 3-digit number behind it? Queen Elizabeth. Alright. A certain demon Marquis is crossing dimensions in a furious attempt to brush up her presence. Revoked. Why don't we name it the Chaos Banshee Empress? Alright, you darn cat. Your intentions are finally revealed. That name smells strongly of the name of an evil boss. Somehow, it feels like the ship would end up imploding if we were to use this name. The endless proposals and rejections feels more like a depressing exam. I can confirm once again that naming is a task that saps one's spirit and strength. Even though I came up a whole string of more than 20 names, they were all rejected. Mysterious voice, are you sure you weren't looking for it? Borealis. TL. Aurora Borealis is the name of the Northern Lights. Borealis is a reference to a gigantic ship in Half-Life 2. This, although it feels like it's secretly representing something, let's use it since it has yet to sink. Aurora Borealis is a natural phenomenon exclusive to the northern lands. From another perspective, it represents the desire of the Mist Country to rise up once more through all odds. Do we still require 2 more weeks? Can the progress be hastened? The answer that I received is quite depressing. The ship can be forcibly commissioned in 2 weeks, but it would only possess the ability to fly. Most of the cannons on the ship would be unusable. Furthermore, 2 weeks is an assumption of an idealistic situation. Looking at the current situation, there is a high probability that the work would be delayed. The destruction of the power source in our attack, as well as my intention for the survivors who barely survived the crisis to take a break and eat some good food to recover, makes a delay in the completion of the ship even more probable. However, what is great is that as long as we are able to fly it out of the base, we could complete the remaining construction in the midst of the journey. Without a doubt, with the standoff between the Seafolk and the All-Land Empire, a complete outbreak of war between the two factions can erupt at any moment. On the contrary, this underwater base is the safest location at present time, and very quickly, I made my decision. Since the All-Land Empire has approved of departure within the contract, it's about time for the envoys of the East Mist Communal Country to return back to the north. Once I return to the surface, I will arrange for a convoy back to the north. At the very least, on the surface, I cannot allow the envoy team to remain in this dangerous city. Ren, find those people whose name are on this list. If their names are underlined in red, it means that the person must be acquired at all cost, even if it means the use of force or outright abduction. If their names are underlined in blue, it means that while it would be for the best if we could recruit them, but do not force them if they are unwilling to. The ones underlined in purple are the ones not to use force against no matter what happens, otherwise they will become a source of trouble. We are already bound to offend the All-Land Empire. It doesn't really matter for us to go a little further. Since we have already begun poaching their talents, we might as well claim more of them while we're at it. With these historical figures under our command, regardless of whether it is us, the East Mist Communal Country or the All-Land Empire, the future would probably change significantly. After locating them, get their family to move in here. Remember to inform them that the city is in danger and that we are rescuing them. This is the truth, so go ahead and do what you must. Without doubt, the underwater base and the Borealis in my possession is the ray of hope in this chaotic situation. It gives us a foothold with the option to advance and to retreat, guaranteeing our safety. However, my good mood immediately sours the moment I arrive back at the Church of Law, inviting me to the enthronement ceremony which would be held in advance. Am I crazy or has Darsos gone mad? Following the invasion of the Sea Folk and the annihilation of their three main fleets, the All-End Empire is gradually losing their control over their coastal areas. All the towns along the coast has come under attack by the Sea Folk, and in response, the Empire has mobilized all of their garrison troops. The cities which had been purged by the carnivorous fishermen tribes has already hit the 3-digit mark. Despite the uneasy balance that is being maintained in the capital, the surrounding areas have already descended into complete chaos. Facing endless hordes of sea folk, the All-End Empire's navy, which wasn't really strong in the first place, began to be pushed back. On the great river leading to Kajursi City, the garrison fleet of the human forces are either annihilated or has docked on the pier of the towns, seeking the assistance from the local troops. Hundreds of tribes are gathering and advancing forward. Under the leadership of the storm priests who possess the crest of the storm, the tribes are gradually transitioning from mere mercenaries into a true organized army. Among their ranks are the short and ugly fishmen, the gorgeous and pure mermaids, the gigantic and burly sea giants, and the ones who number the most, the half-human half-fish nagas, and the many different types of water elementals. After their marshalling and a simple training is completed, the sea folk are prepared for battle with the storm priests standing in the core of the army. Under the guidance of the true goddess, the Queen of Storm, after a long march, their destination comes into view. Capital, a new capital that belongs to us. This is what the sea folk are chanting. Snowy Wind / Yuki Kaze. TL, although she was known for being a lucky ship, various crews aboard other ships throughout the war viewed her as a bad omen, due to the fact that she escorted Shinano, when said ship was torpedoed and sunk by USS Archerfish, and Yamato, during Operation Tango, where said ship and 5 others were sunk. Source, Concol Wikia. I have no idea when did I transit from northern lands to southern lands, but just clarifying, Mist Country is in the north. Lo only realized it after noticing the mention on Northern Lights. I have reflected the other chapters to show so as well. Just a question, do you all prefer double spacing or single spacing between paragraphs? My chapters alternate between the two, but I tend to prefer double, though it takes more effort, because it makes it look neater and the words seems less cramped. Chapter 110, Dragonslayer and True Love. Dragonslayer Basler. Is the goddess of the moon crazy? Why would she send this mad dog out? The arrival of the heroic spirit under the goddess of the moon is not a secret. After all, the difference between a heroic spirit and a human being is obvious at sight. Not to mention, that person didn't even intend to conceal his own identity, living in the city as though it is normal. His rate of appearance in the city is surprisingly high. In the legends of the Order gods, heroic spirits are mighty heroes in history. When their lifespan nears its end and their feats are recognized by the gods, they could sign a soul contract with a god, becoming the god's glorious and eternal warrior. Of course, this is from an optimistic point of view. From what I see, heroic spirits are magnificent only in appearance. If one were to throw away all the meaningless praises and poetry, they are actually just a different kind of undead in the Order faction, not to mention undead who signed a contract of eternal slavery. They are unlucky fellows who don't even have a private life or holidays. Their most obvious trait of that is that despite possessing a physical body and lust, they are unable to bear offspring. This was decided by the nature of their soul of the dead who has entered the process of reincarnation. This is true no matter how their physical body is changed. Furthermore, if one is just talking about restoring one's physical body and lust, my undead creation techniques are also able to achieve that feat. On the other hand, reincarnated god envoys and angels are able to leave their offspring because they have been through the complete cycle of reincarnation, thus becoming a living being once more. The truth is that angels actually originates from humans, similar to how demons of the lower realm are made. Furthermore, they are beings of fixation just like the undead. In fact, even the heroic spirits, despite possessing a much better name, are beings of fixation. There is no doubt that they were once great heroes of history, but being a great hero doesn't mean that they are saints devoid of desires. After becoming heroic spirits, they still retain a high level of fixation towards the interests of their previous life and their past. Bastler's past can be summarized through his title, Dragonslayer. He is born a noble of the Wood Elves. Back then, the elf kingdom was prosperous and he should have had a blissful childhood. However, his happy days didn't last. During the era which he lived in, the dragon race still weren't as rare as they were today. Just like many bedtime stories, he once had a happy family. However, one day, a green dragon passes by his house and casually breathes a dragon breath, similar to how some uncivilized fellows spit would do casually by the roadside, though the worst thing that could occur is them meeting with the fighting auntie wearing a red armband. Unlike humans, the result of an uncivilized dragon is Bastler's entire family getting annihilated, leaving him behind. Alright, the rest of the story is quite cliché. Motivated by his past, the orphan slowly grows up and eventually climbs to the pinnacle of the world. However, even after his name tremors the world, he was still unable to find the green dragon who killed his parents. Since I am unable to find him, I might as well wipe out all of those vile dragons. This is vengeance, as well as to prevent tragedies like mine from occurring again. Without doubt, these are arrogant words from someone afflicted with paranoia. However, when the one who said such arrogant words is an expert who has the ability to carry it out, tragedy strikes on the giant dragons. The dragon race holds deep hatred towards him. He doesn't limit his targets to just the green dragons. In his eyes, these massive creatures are all threats and only a dead dragon is a good dragon. Thus, exploiting all means, not questioning the morality of his actions, he doesn't even spare fledglings and their eggs. In his opinion, anyone who sides with the dragons deserve to die. The vengeance of the dragon race struck, causing him to lose his wife and his friends, plunging him into loneliness once again. This fueled his motivation further and he eventually became the most renowned professional dragon slayer in the world. As someone who is perfectly afflicted with paranoia and a dragon slayer hero, his abilities are catered specially against giant dragons. Be it dragon slaying javelin or dragon slaying sword, he possesses it all. Also, it is recorded that the number of dragons that fell under his hands number at least 4 digits and there isn't a lack of semi-god dragons in the mix. Even after he incited the common wrath of the dragon race and was lynched to death, he successfully dragged down hundreds of dragons down with him. My cute baby, listen obediently to your mummy. If you were to cause a ruckus, Dragon Slayer Bastler will come. These words have become the trump card of the dragon mothers to scare their children. Through their bloodline inheritance which passes knowledge down one generation to the other, the fledglings are well aware of that title and the countless dragon lives who have fallen under him. Thus, from young, they hold fear to this name. Even if it is the fearless little red, she also had a period when she is lulled to sleep by bedtime stories. Back then, when Bastler is mentioned, unease and hesitation would appear on her face. It is to the extent that when the goddess of moon Patricia accepted Bastler as her heroic spirit due to her side concept as a goddess of hunters, she is viewed with hostility by the dragon tribe. 2 wars of gods even broke out due to their soured relationship. Judging from solely his strength, there is no problem whatsoever sending Bastler down into the mortal world. Even if he could only forcibly exert the prowess of a semi-god through his body as a heroic spirit, he still possesses fighting power capable of rivaling with the 9-headed dragon emperor. At the very least, this heroic spirit has descended to the mortal world for 3 times in the past and during which, he was able to kill 3 powerful giant dragons while clearing away a few hundred of grown dragons along the way. In the view of most people, there isn't a single dragon he is unable to defeat. As an outstanding hunter, the first thing one has to do when hunting down a massive target is to study its habits, weakness and personality. These few days, Bastler may seem to be strolling around leisurely but in fact, he is observing the weakness of his opponent. He is just choosing not to make a move now. When he makes a move, it will definitely result in a merciless and deadly slaughter. This is an evaluation from the veteran hunter Lowens. Indubitably, Bastler, who views hunting dragons as his raison d'etre, is an idol-like figure among hunters like Lowens. These few days, this fugitive, escapee, had been willing to go through the trouble of putting on the mantle and avoiding the sentries and guards in the cities just to look at the hero in his heart from afar. Of course, his actions of peeping are unable to escape Bastler's acute senses. However, what was surprising is that this dragon slayer, who is reputed to be bloodthirsty, is actually quite easy to get along with. He even took the initiative to call Lowens over to chat with him. When Lowens requested his idol to impart some hunting techniques to him, he even provided him some pointers. When Lowens asked him for the reason, this was how he replied: "Hey, I can feel the screams of agony of wild beasts on the verge of death from your hands. We both walk the same path, so how could I be stingy with you? It is really a pity that you aren't an elf ranger and you don't use a bow, otherwise I would be able to impart you some little tricks on dragon slaying. The current generation is too weak and there are too few people who actively seek strong preys like you. It is about time for the periodical extermination of those cockroach-like lizards who lay eggs everywhere." To speak of slaying dragons like a periodical clearing of cockroaches, his plain tone made Lowens sense the formidable strength of this heroic spirit and his bone-piercing resentment against the dragon tribe. This isn't the only time the gentleman has met with Bastler. It is a pity, lacking just another half more. The dragon slayer, who seems to just be passing by, suddenly appears, glances at him plainly and sighs. His actions almost scared Bai Feng to death. The pitiful dragon hunter was only strolling around the alleys when he is obstructed by the heroic spirit who had caught on to the scent of a dragon. If it wasn't for the fact that a large portion of gods and mortals view dragons as a demi-humans rather than the descendants of dragons, Bai Feng would probably have been destroyed at that moment. It is such a pity. This is the evaluation I casually made after I was aware of the incident. The moment I spoke those words, I noticed a wave of head nods in my surroundings. However, the nine-headed dragon Emperor Hydra is a god beast. For Patricia to send down the dragon slayer who would never show mercy to him, does she intend to start a war with the Queen of Storms? There is no doubt about his strength whatsoever. However, I made the same judgment as Darsos and the rest. There is no way Bastler would show mercy. That is the crux of the problem. The moment he strikes, regardless of whether he wins the battle or not, the war would escalate immediately. We must quicken our pace. To me, every battle and the time after each battle is precious. A real-life battle is the most direct and reliable experimental lab to test out one's abilities. Even the most powerful and striking race talent or battle technique cannot be considered reliable if it has yet to be tested in a practical battle. Personally, I am used to tallying the gains and loss at the end of a battle, and I would write down my acquisitions and reflections on my diary. Of course, of what is written, the most important matter is the most important matter of all is excavating my weaknesses and making up for them. Although this battle isn't a long one, our opponents weren't weak. After all, he is a saint-rank necromancer and a moment of carelessness could potentially lead to our deaths. Alright, I admit that my words weren't really true. The more I find out about that Lich Jr. of mine, the more I feel that I wouldn't lose to the other party. Even if I didn't successfully dismantle him back then, most probably we would have only ended up in a prolonged battle. In the end, the ones who would emerge victorious would still be us, the team who are weaker in terms of absolute strength. It seems contradictory for the ones with weaker absolute strength to emerge victorious. Actually, this isn't contradictory at all. Carlohan's lack of battle experience only plays a small part in it. His soul, which is corrupted and twisted right down to the core, is the main culprit for the reason why he is unable to emerge victorious. Soul World? This Soul World you speak of sounds incredible. What does it do? As a necromancer who specializes in death-related offensive magic, Carlohan's soul imprint augments the effects of the death magic. There is nothing really unique about it. On the other hand, I heard that his soul world is the rare type which doesn't just boost one's stats. Hearing that news, I was astonished. Most of the soul world of saint rank mages consists just of a simple modification of their surroundings to create an environment suitable for them to exert their full strength. For example, a fire mage would be able to warp his surroundings into the fire elemental dimension. Although it boosts the might of fire magic significantly, controlling it burns a lot of energy. making it highly inefficient. A normal soul world is often used in battles involving large armies or to assist a few mages of the same attribute in a fight. By stacking the bonus attributes on top of one another, if they are able to turn a land of ice into a blizzard, that would be extremely scary. On the other hand, unorthodox soul worlds tend to be based on a person's experiences and is a protrusion of their soul. Although there may be a great disparity in terms of their might, given that the person is able to change the world solely on their soul alone, this would prove that the person's will and fixation far surpasses the norm. Not to mention, this kind of soul world is hard to guard against and hard to deal with. Possessing a unique soul world tend to be the exclusive right of powerful experts and serves as a symbol of their status. Hearing that Carlohan actually has a soul world known as Real World, my curiosity was piqued. I raised my personal evaluation of my junior in my mind, which has reached rock bottom. I didn't expect that you would still have some aces on you. What is the effect of your soul world? Why didn't you use it back then? It actually isn't that good. It is just a little obsession of mine. It works like this. After hearing Carlohan's explanations, my evaluation of him lowers once more. This time, it isn't just rock bottom anymore, but underground level. Harl always, after listening to his words beside me, emphasizes once again for him to not claim that she is his mentor. The reason? His soul world really makes one at a loss of words. An AO gender change? What meaning is there to it? Can you be more normal? For example, plotting a coup d'etat or starting an undead calamity. If you were slightly more normal, you would have long overthrown your elder brother. But this is the deepest desire in my heart, and soul worlds are the physical manifestation of one's hopes and desires, right? Alright. Although Carlohan said this with a tearful face and the tone of his voice lacks of confidence, his interpretation of a soul world isn't wrong. The next moment, as though recalling something, a gleeful tone appears in Carlohan's voice. Also, I have used this soul world twice and successfully defeated a few extremely troublesome opponents. Of them, one of them is a myth-rank expert. Hearing this, I am a little speechless. Indeed, not every man is able to remain calm when they find 2 additional lumps of meat on their chests and the disappearance of their vitals. Having one's thoughts wander in the middle of a tense battle is suicidal. However, for an expert to die due to their attention being focused on their nether regions is also a little too embarrassing. I shiver at the thought of what would have happened if he had suddenly activated this soul world of his in the midst of the battle. Then, definitely by no means should you use this soul world. Right. Do not tell anyone about this soul world as well, especially crows. I can't imagine what would happen if crows were to know about his soul world. You mean that female elf druid? Is she my comrade? That's great. I've been wanting to find someone to exchange thoughts with. Alright, Lord, stop staring at me like this. I will do as you say. However, there are some things that cannot be avoided. What that would come would eventually come. The day which Carlohan would meet the gentleman eventually came. Furthermore, sparks flew about the moment they met. The reason why you still like grown men is because you have yet to meet a Shota which you truly love. Age? That is never a problem. A certain grey elf said. The reason why you still like females is because you have yet to meet a male you truly love. Gender? That is never a problem. A certain Lich said. The reason why you still like humans is because you have yet to meet a life form which you truly love. Species? That is never a problem. A certain person who everyone knows said. 3 hands grasp each other and a bizarre resonance occur between the 3. A friendship exclusive to gentlemen is being built swiftly. A relationship of transparency and mutual understanding. Friendships between gentlemen are always forged that quickly. Comrades. Brothers. Sisters. The Grey Elf and Lich stare at each other in mutual understanding before eventually bowing in submission to the third person. Big Brother Bei Feng, boss-stricken. Yes, if there is a unit of measurement for gentlemanliness, then the unit would surely be Bei Feng units. This clearly displays the noble and esteemed position Bei Feng possesses in the road of the gentleman. All of us are comrades who see past facades and dedicate our soul into pursuing true love. There is no need for formalities. My path isn't a lonesome one. From now on, let's address each other as siblings. Even if the world is unable to comprehend our pursuit for true love, at least we still have one another. My little brother and sisters, don't you all think so as well? Great. I am 67 this year, So I'll be the second sister. Although I am 235, I am content with being the third sister. Alright, I won't retort on why there are two younger sisters here and how the oldest Momo would turn out to be the third sister. Apparently, the way they determine their seniority of their sworn siblinghood isn't by age but by the level of their gentlemanliness. When three pairs of hands grasp each other, when a certain Durkin became the elder sibling of the three and their relationship were being established swiftly, when the true love three siblings were born, the other people in the room found themselves blinded by the sight. I can't take it anymore. My eyes. Someone rolls on the floor, clutching onto their eyes. Don't stop me, let me destroy her. The glory of Sulphur Mountain City's town security cannot be ruined in her hands. For someone who catches pervert to turn into a pervert, for someone hunting mummies to turn into a mummy, this is too shameful. Someone draws their sword in rage. Big brother, I will try my best. Someday, I will also find my true love. Someone feels moved and impassioned by their sworn siblinghood. If my true love lies with the dead, can I? Someone, even though she didn't join in due to her pride, upon watching such a sight, she feels a surge of momentum. Stop it right there. I have had enough of all these damn gentlemen. If you dare to join their gang, causing the proliferation of the true love siblings, I will really make a move. Someone intends to use force to stop the Beifang virus from spreading. That, can true love be with one's bloodkin as well? That's not right. I remember that two people can only be considered as bloodkin if they are within 3 generations of one another. We are 1 generation, 2 generation, 3 generation. Our clan's genealogy book has been lost. Anyway, it has been many generations between us, so there are no obstacles at all. Hee hee. Someone is chuckling in happiness secretly. To be laughing so foolishly over nothing and even starting to count with her fingers. It looks like under the influence of Roland, Ren's etiquette has crumbled completely. She is also becoming more and more insane. This is unbefitting for a princess of a country. Looks like I will have to conduct remedial lessons for her after we return. Someone is worried for the princess whose behavior is growing stranger by the day. As for me, I am deeply regretting my action of realizing my promise so quickly. My creation of Carlohan's body resulted in the formation of the true love siblings. Perhaps should I call him Rosemary, the name he came up with. Now, when I received Darsos's invitation letter for the enthronement ceremony, which he sent with malicious intent, I immediately started working on the creation of Rosemary's physical body without second thoughts. In this beautiful female body, it contains the overwhelming vile intentions of mine. Her face is modeled after the Queen Victoria, who has tested and verified in history. Also, I added in a few aspects of Crow's and many other people's androgynous beauty. On top of that, the body had the sexiness of a mature woman to the point that the seductive curvature seems slightly unnatural. Rosemary is also well versed and educated in the mannerisms of females. Without doubt, this is a masterpiece. Furthermore, it is catered specially towards a certain person's interests. At the very least, when Rosemary made an appearance, the fellows from the East Mist Royal Knight Order were enchanted. The young knights of the All-Ends White Wolf Guards almost threw aside their treasured swords. Judging from how men were staring fixedly at Rosemary with an impassioned gaze, it seems that my workmanship is still up to standard. What about me? Just like how you make a puppet using mud bit by bit, how can I be attracted to a human-shaped puppet that I made by patching flesh together? At this moment, I am in a carriage, sitting on the opposite end of the Supreme Beauty as I spitefully thought of the shocked expression that would appear on Darsos's face to vent the frustration I accumulated from having to put on a skirt once more. Wait, stop for a moment. Looking at the time, we were still early. I am a bit curious about the sight around us, so under my request, the All-End Empire's reception carriage slows down its speed. By the side, I see a group of paupers along the street begging for alms. They are staring intently at our carriage, which carries the insignia of the All-End royalty. I can feel a bone-piercing resentment under their expressionless look of calmness. They are only some peasants from the Pier district. Princess, there's nothing much to see here. During the enthronement ceremony, the world's top-class musical team and circus. I nod my head subconsciously. I pull down the blinds of the carriage and allow the carriage to proceed on with its previous pace. Along the road, Have you met 4 to 5 gatherings of such refugees who were affected by the disaster? As the stalemate with the sea folk drags on, more and more refugees will appear. Most probably, the All-Land nobles who are busy with the enthronement ceremony are just like the uncaring White Wolf Knight, choosing to disregard these unlucky fellows completely. The carriages who were moving in the opposite direction as us caused a jam. As more and more civilians realize that there is something amiss with the present situation, more and more of them are choosing to escape from the city. Civilians won't care about the balance of war or whatsoever. They only know that both their country and their lives are in danger, and yet, the nobles and knights are busy playing around, busying themselves with the enthronement ceremony, neglecting the calls of help from the bottom tier. This may seem like a small matter at hand, but this clearly shows how tense the current situation is and that internal problems are occurring in Kajarsi city. At the very least, the high prestige that the newly appointed emperor possesses among his civilians has been mostly lost, and this has shaken his foundation as the monarch. It is impossible for Darsos not to see it, but he still chooses to not make any actions. It seems like he intends to make use of this enthronement ceremony to throw in all of his stake and gamble a big one, making such a risky gamble when he doesn't even have sufficient knowledge of the sea folk. I don't hold much confidence in his decision. It looks like we should retreat as soon as possible.